Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Cabbage Head Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What if Deku's new quirk summoned Tanjiro? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. There's been a lot of people that have called Izuku crazy. Bakugu, obviously, other classmates, bitchy teenagers, annoyed adults. And sure, maybe Izuku's a little strange. But mostly he's just quiet, merely someone who lets his thoughts run for maybe longer than necessary, and the thoughts sometimes become words. Izuku doesn't see that as crazy. If anything, Bakugu's constant yelling could be seen as crazy. He does mumble a lot, he supposes, and talks to himself sometimes, and he gets lost in his head, but he doesn't see that as too weird, even if it is a little annoying. That is, until his head starts talking back. The first time it happens is when he's on his way back to the dorms, mourning his almost normal snack run. He'd actually managed to leave the store with his snack, relatively unharmed, except for his dignity. An old lady had grabbed his chips off a high shelf for him. God, why is he so short? But then a man with salt and pepper hair and ram's horns had smacked directly into him. Oh, if it isn't a baby hero from you, the man had cooed, his voice deceptively high-pitched. He tossed his head in a very ram-like motion. Midoriya Izuku, that's right. The man's hand had snapped out, faster than Izuku anticipated, and latched tightly around his wrist. Izuku jerked a bit in surprise, but kept himself from lashing out. It wasn't the first time he'd been recognized, of course, but the wrist-grabbing was new. Sir, he said, making sure his tone was polite if cautious. Would you let go of me, please? The man acted like he hadn't heard Izuku. Baby hero, who thinks he's ready for the world, but does he know of the real world? Of the ugly, ugly reality of consequences, of cause and effect, and what must be done to ensure safety? Alarm bells sounded in Izuku's head, nerves reverberating along his body. Stay calm, he told himself. He might not be a threat. He tries to pull away as gently as possible. Excuse me, sir, but I, have somewhere to be. The man's grip only tightened. Now Izuku is truly wary, adrenaline pumping along with his heart. He lurches backward, ripping his arm out of the man's grasp. The man doesn't move, but clicks his tongue in annoyance. Now, the man chides. No fighting here, we promise. Just a lesson. Which one? Yes. Both of the man's hands shoot out this time, grabbing onto Izuku's shoulders, fingernails digging into the fabric of his shirt. Izuku cries out, trying to twist away. Don't worry, the man tells him serenely. You will understand soon. A jolt zapped through the man's fingers, dancing along Izuku's nervous system and rattling him to the bone. The world swayed, shifted, turned upside down around him, and God, he couldn't breathe. What did he do? And the next thing he knew was concrete biting into his knees and nausea roiling in his stomach. The man was gone. His grocery bag had been moved to right in front of him, the cheery yellow smiley face peering into his soul. I'm never going to be able to live this down if the class finds out, Izuku thinks miserably. He peeled himself off of the sidewalk and hoped he could get back before Aizawa-sensei formed a search party. He's a few feet away from UA's gates when he proceeds to trip over his somehow magically untied shoelace and stub his toe roughly on a rock. He thinks, F my life, as he hops around in a miserable, one-footed circle of pain. He proceeds to almost fall over as a voice that is definitely not his echoes in his mind. What? Izuku thinks back automatically, just as baffled as the voice. Who? The voice stammers. It's masculine but young, maybe somewhere around Izuku's age. Izuku and the voice appear to have the same realization at the same time. There's someone in my head. Damn it, what was that demon's art? Oh my gosh, how the hell, wouldn't it be cancelled when I killed him? Is this a curse? Stupid snack runs, I'm never leaving my room again. What quirk would even, what is going on? A sudden, piercing headache roars between Izuku's ears, and his hands fly to his head. He takes a few deep breaths, waiting for the pain to abate. He shakes his head hard, as if that will do anything, and tries to sort out what was his thoughts and what was the voices. The headache is lessening to a dull throb when the voice demands again, "What is going on?" Izuku jumps, head twisting as if he can find the person the voice is attached to. "I don't know." He only slightly shrieks. "You killed someone?" "No, yes, but it was a demon." The voice only slightly shrieks back. "It was going to eat me." "Why the hell would a demon eat you? They don't even exist." "I know a lot of people don't think they exist, but I promise they do, and it's my job to kill them so they don't kill anyone else." "What?" Izuku thinks intelligently. "Okay, what the F dash? What the F is happening? Was it that man's quirk? Was his lesson sticking some insane murderer spouting about demons into Izuku's head so he could learn the reality of consequences? Consequences for what? For bumping into him on the sidewalk? That was so the man's fault, though he'd run directly into Izuku. He just wanted some goddamn snacks. Why is it always him? He glares into the security camera on the gates, sure that Nezu is in his office laughing at him right now. Izuku buries his face into his hands, groaning. "Oh my god. Aizawa-sensei is going to kill me. I'm dead. I'm in the grave, 6 feet under because someone stuck a person in my FNG head." "It wasn't your fault?" The voice tries. "I mean, from my perspective you were the one thrown into my head." Then, after a few seconds, a twin horror to Izuku seems to dawn on the voice. "No. Jisan is going to be so angry. Then, what have I gotten myself into?" "You and me both," Izuku mutters, finally flashing his student ID up to the sensor and dragging himself onto campus. Kaminari skids into the entryway when Izuku shuts the door behind him. "Bro," the blonde says jovially. "The sustenance has arrived." Izuku dislikes how that sentence makes him seem like the sustenance, but whatever. He deposits the bag of snacks with Kirishima, after snagging his own, of course, and quickly retreats to his room before anyone can tease him about having successfully returned to UA in one piece. Technically true, the voice muses. Just with a +1. "Oh, shut up," Izuku thinks, though not unkindly. He allows himself to flop dramatically on his bed, limbs starfishing over his comforter. He shoves his face into his comforter, trying not to think about how there's another person in his head listening to his thoughts and oh god they're going to know so many embarrassing things, ding. But at least it's a stranger and not, like, Uraraka or something. That's a plus, he supposes, if there's any pluses to be found in this situation. "This is so weird," the voice mumbles. He sounds almost as distraught as Izuku. The voice's thoughts speed up, going over theories about a demon's art? And going over spells he's heard of or experienced, and it's easy to say that Izuku is thoroughly confused. "So you're serious about the whole demon thing?" Izuku asks, trying very hard not to look at the assignments waiting for him on his desk. "And spells? Like magic? Magic?" The voice repeats musingly. "No, well maybe. Some demons grow so powerful that they can cultivate their own demon art, which is like a special ability that they use to kill more humans and slayers." "Wait, special ability? You mean Quirk, right?" "Quirk?" The voice says the word hesitantly, like they've never heard of it before. It's then that Izuku realizes what's been nagging him about the voice. He has a soft accent, something similar to Japanese, but not quite. A different dialect, maybe? I don't think I know what that means. As far as I know, demons don't have, quirks. Izuku sits up, all potential thoughts of homework forgotten. "You don't know what a quirk is?" "No. Should I?" A fast thought flies through the voice's head, but Izuku can't quite catch it. "Something about a dense pig? Hold on, I have to..." The thoughts following consist mostly of swearing, starting out mild and crescendoing into some truly impressive specimens. Izuku rates it as an 8.6 on the Kaken scale. It's not entirely clear what he's cursing about. He's shouting at a Zenitsu and a boar? A boy? A boar boy, but something is clearly going down on the voice's end. Izuku pities the poor BSTRD who's invoked the voice's wrath. Meanwhile, he sorts through his assignments, putting them into 2 piles. Half but at the last minute and still get at least 87%, and should actually put effort into. Sadly, the latter far outweighs the former. That's UA for you, he supposes. He's personally doubtful of his classmates' claims that he's a genius. He likes analysis, Not FING Quirk history, but academics have never really been a challenge for him. Izuku can count on 1, no, wait, 0 hands, people who've appreciated that about him enough. Not to punch him. Sounds fun. The voice grumbles, sounding distinctly harried. He sighs, which is weird to hear from inside someone's head. Sorry. A couple of injured idiots tried to fight each other over fish. What were we talking about? Quirks. Izuku abandons his homework. But actually, I should probably ask what your name is. Can't keep referring to you as the voice. Sure. The voice agrees surprisingly quickly for a potential deranged murderer. His voice does sound nice, though. I'm Kamado Tanjiro. Nice to meet you, Kamado-san. I'm Midoriya Izuku. Izuku really hopes giving out his identity isn't going to come back to bite him in the butt. This could be an elaborate villain scheme, but Kamado-san seems honestly too sincere and not villainous. Also, it would be a really weird way to try to, kidnap Izuku or something. Again, hopefully. Kamado-san politely ignores Izuku's train of thought. Oh, you can just call me Tanjiro. Just call me Izuku, then. Izuku rolls his eyes, then wonders if Tanjiro could tell that he did that. Probably good to get that out of the way now, right? God knows that'll probably be the least of the personal information that'll be upfront and personal. Tanjiro laughs softly. Don't ask how Izuku knows that. He just does. Yeah, you're probably right. Any idea how long this will last? Not a clue. Wonderful. Tanjiro takes a deep breath as he cleans his blade, letting the swell of oxygen slow his heart and relax his muscles. The demon hadn't been particularly difficult, but it had a strange splitting ability, almost like the first demon he had fought. Thankfully, it only split into 2, even if one of its forms was child-sized. Izuku cackles triumphantly from beside him, swinging his blades in a way that might have taken off Zenitsu's hand if the blonde hadn't scooted away. Take that, shitty demon. No one will weep over your smoldering pyre, and only the laughs of the victorious shall follow you to the afterlife. Tanjiro feels his lips twitch, though whether it's to smile or to frown he isn't sure. That's nice, Izuku, he mutters as he bows to the fragmenting shards of the demon, sending a mental prayer towards their departing soul. He turns back to his companions, wincing at the sight of Izuku's shoulder wound. Stop looking at me like that, stupid freak. Izuku snarls. I think I have some bandages, just hold on a sec, Tanjiro tells him pleasantly. He's had far too much Izuku exposure to be fazed by the boy's words. He's rooting through his pack when a strange, buzzing sensation crawls across his skin. He almost drops the bandages as the feeling intensifies, shrieking as it spirals through his blood. The ground rocks, suddenly unstable beneath his feet, and he stumbles. His ears ring, ring, ring. My life. Tanjiro blinks. Brings a hand to his head, checks for blood. No pain greets him, however, meaning that a head wound is not the reason for the words echoing. In his skull, he thinks a startled what? What? The voice repeats. Tanjiro whirls around, sword leaping to his hand, but there's only forest surrounding him. He forces his breathing to smooth out. Who? He starts, and it's the sound of his voice, strangely loud and real, that sends the realization hurtling at him. There's someone in my head. A roaring jumble of combined thoughts is cut short by pain stabbing into Tanjiro's head. He grunts and staggers at the onslaught, trees blurring into mottled greens around him. Zenitsu lets out a cry and races forward to steady him, amber eyes already welling. As Tanjiro comes to terms with the impossible reality of what's happening, he wholeheartedly agrees with the voice's first statement, F, my life. The next morning, instead of waking to his alarm, Izuku wakes to a knock on his door. He blinks blearily, running a hand over his face as Kirishima sticks his head in. The redhead lets out a surprised laugh, sharp teeth flashing. Mito, you gotta get up, dude. You're going to be late. Wah, Izuku says elegantly, squinting at his classmate. Wow, you're really out of it. Don't worry, you have a few minutes. I'll stall Aizawa-sensei for you. Kirishima ducks back into the hallway. Izuku blinks at the still ajar door, then blinks down at his blankets. His brain feels really foggy, the thoughts not quite computing. What had Kirishima said again? Get up? He said you're going to be late. I think you overslept. Izuku just barely manages not to shriek, hand flying to his temple. With a heady rush, the memories flood back to him. The person in my head. Oh my god. Yeah, the voice, Tanjiro, agrees, though he sounds like he's trying not to laugh. But you might want to get going. Izuku glances at his clock, the digital numbers shining unsympathetically, 8:24. Oh shit. Izuku practically falls off his bed, scrambling for his uniform. He's out in the hallway in record time, trying to smooth his wrinkled shirt and wrestling with his tie. If only my dad had stuck around long enough to teach me how to tie this DMN thing. There's a surprised choking noise from Tanjiro, who coughs out an amused but kind of horrified, "What?" "Don't worry about it." Izuku spits the mouthwash he'd used to replace standard hygiene into the sink before racing back to his room. He thanks the universe that he'd had the foresight to keep his bag packed last night. He snatches it up and nearly falls down the stairs at least 4 times before he hits solid ground. He swipes up his shoes and recreates yesterday's hopped one-footed circle, except this time it's out of panic, not pain. He barely has the laces tied when he sprints out of the dorms. Thankfully, the shoes hold. He's never been late before, never had reason to, and Aizawa-sensei is going to have his hide. The same guy who's going to kill you for having a person in your head? Tanjiro questions, smiling. It's clear that Izuku's situation is funny to him, and Izuku doesn't blame. Exactly. Why didn't you wake me up? I didn't know I was supposed to. Tanjiro says defensively. Besides, how would I even wake you up? Scream or something, I don't know. Izuku rounds the hallway corners at breakneck speed. That would be rude. Izuku takes an infinitesimal second to roll his eyes as he slows outside the 1A classroom, forcing himself to take a deep breath and button his blazer. This is fine. He decides not to put off his impending doom and slips into the classroom. Instantly, everyone's eyes are on him. Izuku cringes, shuffling his feet. Sorry, sensei, he mutters. I slept through my alarm. Aizawa-sensei's eyes evaluate his soul and find him unworthy. The man sighs, tugging on his capture weapon. Take your seat, Midoriya. We'll talk about this after class. I'm so effed. Midoriya slithers miserably to his seat, resisting the very tempting urge to smack his face into his desk. He cannot believe he slept through his alarm. Maybe someone yeeting the entirety of another person into your head takes a lot out of you. Of course, Izuku can't exactly tell his sensei that, but still. I'm assuming we're both making potentially stupid decisions and keeping this under wraps? Tanjiro asks. Yeah, Izuku agrees, weaving a pen across his fingers. I mean, there's nothing anyone can do, anyway, and it was my fault for not getting out of that situation. Tanjiro hums. I don't think it was your fault. It's not like we could expect this. I guess, but villains always seem to find me. Aizawa-sensei says I'm a trouble magnet, Izuku sighs, forcing himself to copy down what his sensei is writing on the board even though he's not paying attention to it. Sorry for dragging you into this. No, it's okay. It's not your fault. I mean, I should have been more careful with that demon. Right? Izuku mutters. Maybe you can explain to me what these demon things are after school. After what? Unfortunately, if you're in someone's brain, you can tell if they're being sincere. Tanjiro murmurs something, his mind flashing back to a train. Before saying it's okay, I can tell you need to focus. I'll ask Zenitsu. The boy Tanjiro was lecturing earlier. He's right, though, being late and then not paying attention is a surefire way to gain himself a detention. Izuku tries to shove away Tanjiro's thoughts and listen to Aizawa-sensei. It's surprisingly difficult. Both of their minds seem to blend into each other, different but achingly similar, and Izuku's not sure it's even possible to close himself off from the boy. He's weirdly mentally tired when Aizawa-sensei calls him up to his desk. His classmates shuffle past him, sending him ill-speak-at-your-funeral looks. Izuku appreciates it. All right, Midoriya. Aizawa-sensei taps a sheaf of papers against his desk, evening out their edges. Tell me this is really about you sleeping through your alarm. Izuku is uncomfortably aware of Tanjiro pretending that he's not listening. IDT's sense. I might have pulled too many all-nighters. He tries a small laugh, but it comes out a bit shakier than he meant it to. Aizawa-sensei blinks at him slowly, unimpressed. He's so not fooled. You're never late, kid. Ever. To anything. I know. It'll never happen again, I promise. Right? Aizawa-sensei's gaze darts over Izuku's body, as if looking for a sign of injury. He sighs. I'll trust you with this one, okay? But you can always come talk to me if the need arises. Izuku swallows down the bitter taste of guilt and squeaks. Okay, thanks. Aizawa-sensei just dismisses him with a wave of his hand. Izuku waits until the door is fully closed behind him to indulge in a cringe wince of horribleness. Good. That went well, Tanjiro comments dryly. Izuku scowls, scuffing the toe of his sneaker against the tiled floor as he heads towards English. As if you could do better. I've been told that I'm a sheet liar, so I doubt it. Izuku chuckles aloud at that. Good luck with your own confrontations, then. Tanjiro groans. Kami, don't remind me. Izuku frowns a bit and documents the old saying for later consideration. He takes a deep breath as he slips into his chair in English. His shoving away thing had kind of worked in homeroom, right? He tries it again, letting his eyes close for a second as he pushes away Tanjiro, boxing him and his own thoughts in. They might be kind of sharing a mind, or maybe their minds are just connected. And if there's only one mind here that both of them are using, which one of them was tossed into the others? But there has to be a way to put some distance between each other, right? If he can stay conscious of which are his thoughts and which are Tanjiro's, he should be able to separate himself from the other boy, even if it's only a little. He doesn't realize how much concentration it requires to keep it up, and it's not even working that well. He can hear Tanjiro's amusing conversation about school with Zenitsu, until Yamada-sensei calls on him and Izuku's entirely out of the loop. He manages to recover fairly quickly, however, since he's already mostly fluent in English. The weird mental exhaustion he felt in homeroom returns and strengthens. Izuku starts to lose track of time, only being clued in to the end of each class when his classmates start leaving around him. He can't focus in maths, either, his brain completely unwilling to absorb any information whatsoever. Izuku would throw hands if he wasn't so tired. The strange fogginess that plagued him when he woke up this morning slithers back into his brain during his last class before lunch. After the bell rings, he moves his limbs on autopilot down the halls, thoughts stuttering and barely comprehensible. He presses the heel of his palm into his forehead, as if he could physically smack away whatever is FNG with his head. He feels distant from the high ceilings and sunlit windows, his only motivation the growling in his stomach from missing breakfast. Izuku frowns to himself, shaking his head a bit. The voice was faint, probably another student talking in the distance. He's not sure why it grabbed his attention so much. His brain is way too tired for this. When did he get so tired? Izuku. Izuku freezes, shoes squeaking on the tile. That was his name, wasn't it? Unless it was someone talking and it just sounded like his name. A phantom tingle of electricity courses along his nerves, making him shiver. Is he forgetting something? Can you hear me? Someone bumps into his shoulder, the touch barely registering against his skin. He turns to see Bakugo shouldering past him. The spiky blonde glances back and starts to sneer, but his expression falters when he meets Izuku's eyes. Why is he looking at me like that? Izuku, snap out of it. The breath leaves his lungs all at once, leaving him gasping. A headache slices through his temples and Izuku stumbles, the world suddenly condensing and pressing in around him. Oh God. The Quirk. Tanjiro. Yeah, that's me, Tanjiro coaxes gently. He starts to say something else, but Izuku's attention is whipped away when a hand grabs his bicep, steadying his rattling body. He blinks to find crimson eyes narrowed at him. The hell was that? Bakugo demands, scowling. You sick or something? Having only recently gained motor controls for his mouth, Izuku stammers, Of course not, I'm fine. Bakugo releases him, but he doesn't make a move to continue on his way. Because you almost fell flat on your demon face for nothing? Izuku flushes a bit, wishing it was anyone else besides Bakugo who saw that. Just some, vertigo, I think. I didn't have time to eat breakfast. Bakugo's avid stare lessens a bit, and he shoves his hands into his pockets, the picture of unconcerned. Whatever. Don't if he sleep through your alarm next time then. Right? Izuku murmurs, and pretends he isn't fleeing the hellishly awkward conversation. The chatter of the lunch hall against his pounding head makes him wince, but he trudges to the line anyway. Tanjiro speaks softly, too aware of the pain cresting in both of their heads. You scared me for a minute there. What happened? Izuku recalls the strange, disconnected feeling where he couldn't hear his own thoughts, much less Tanjiro's. Not just that his mind was 1,000,000 kilometers away, which happens often, but that he was almost closed off from his consciousness. I'm not sure. A drawback of the quirk? I don't feel tired though. Tanjiro points out. Headache, but that's all. Izuku shakes his head, following the flow of people out of the line. I don't know. I can figure it out later, maybe after I take a nap. I'm sure it's fine, though you don't have to worry. Tanjiro can, sadly, tell full well the intentions behind that last statement, but politely doesn't point it out. Uraraka waves at him from the table his friends have claimed, and Izuku slides into A. Tanjiro goes back to being quiet, his thoughts distant and floaty. Izuku sighs, body melting into his chair. God, my head hurts. He meets Uraraka's expectant gaze and asks, what? A small wrinkle forms between her eyebrows, and she glances at Ida. I just asked how it went with Aizawa-sensei. Oh. Izuku flashes a slightly nervous smile. Everything's fine. Not even a lecture. The wrinkle smooths and Uraraka grins back, pumping a fist. Hell yeah, Deku. Think you can get Aizawa-sensei to let me be late? Ida frowns from beside her, pushing his glasses up his nose. Uraraka, you should not purposefully be late to class. Uraraka laughs, poking her chopsticks into her rice. Come on, Ida. You can't tell me you don't have days you just want to stay in bed a little longer. I suppose, but Ida cuts himself off as Todoroki sits next to Izuku. Uraraka and Ida aren't entirely used to Todoroki's semi-recent installment to their friend group, but they're trying. The somber boy regards them without a word before starting in on his soba. Izuku wishes he could get by without talking too. Nevertheless, Uraraka launches back into bright conversation, bemoaning all of the homework Ectoplasm-sensei had thrown at them. Izuku does his best to reciprocate, though it's a little half-hearted. Honestly, he can't remember even one of the assignments from their maths teacher. He's thankful when Tsuyu joins them, giving Uraraka more of a capable person to chat with. Then Tu tilts her head towards him and says, You seem kind of out of it today, Midoriya. You okay, Karo? And he's no longer thankful. I'm fine, thanks for asking. You should probably sleep more, if you were tired enough to sleep through your alarm, Tsuyu says. Yeah. Uraraka jumps in. I get we're going to be heroes, but you have to take care of yourself, too. She looks at Izuku with a vaguely threatening air, and Izuku smiles warily. Still, though warmth blossoms in his chest at their words, they're so effortlessly kind to him, like they think about him as Izuku thinks of them. I know, don't worry. I'll probably go to bed early tonight to catch up on some sleep. Ida nods approvingly. Very good. A minimum of 7 to 8 hours a night is required for the body and mind to function accordingly. Well, Izuku might not get 7 hours a night, but he's always needed less sleep than other people. Todoroki side-eyes him as if he knows exactly what Izuku's thinking, and the greenette sticks his tongue out a bit at him. As if Todoroki could stop him. Only one person really knows Izuku's thoughts currently, and he doesn't even know the guy, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem, unless someone here is secretly a mind reader, which he wouldn't put past any of his classmates. Still, though, he might actually go to sleep a little earlier tonight if this headache doesn't calm down. Tanjiro mutters an agreement, thoughts of swapping his watch with one of his companions rising to his brain. The rest of the day passed in an automated blur of Izuku taking notes and answering questions. Aizawa-sensei eyes him with an impassive expression as he dismisses them, and Izuku straightens up a bit, trying not to look as exhausted as he feels. His sensei doesn't call him back, though, and he takes the reprieve gratefully. Your classes are kind of interesting, Tanjiro comments as Izuku follows the tide of his classmates back to the dorms. I'll switch with you any day, Izuku tells him, miming falling asleep to Momo, who was brandishing her new shipment of loose-leaf tea at him from the kitchen. She flashes him an understanding smile and snags Mina instead. "I won't hold you to that," Tanjiro says dryly. An unspoken thought of his flickers across their conjoined minds, so fast that Izuku almost misses it. "I wouldn't willingly put anyone in my position." Izuku thinks of scorching blue flames, of Shigaraki's leering face, of the feeling of so close, but too late and my fault. Tanjiro watches the birds flapping around in the surrounding rice fields, filling the air with their cries. The day is beautiful, the sky a bright azure that tapers into something gentler at the edges. A soft breeze tousles his hair playfully as it brushes past them. The rice fields reflect the stunning blue and Tanjiro could almost imagine them walking along the sky. That is, until Zenitsu latches into the sleeve of his Haori, whining, "Inosuke is bullying me, Tanjiro. Using others for protection is unmanly, you sniveling sheet." Inosuke proclaims, though he's not even looking at them. Instead, he's glaring at the surrounding birds like they personally offended him. "Menpicho isn't gonna help you, anyway." Kami deliver him from his friends' strong personalities. He supposes they make quite the trio, or quartet really. He reaches back to touch the smooth side of Nezuko's box, smiling faintly to himself. At least he has her, and the voice in his head. "Are you sure you're okay?" Zenitsu asks, still clutching Tanjiro's sleeve. "You're not hiding an injury or something for manliness?" "No, I'm fine. It really was just a headache yesterday," Tanjiro assures him. Izuku is still in class, judging by the formulas dominating his thoughts. The idea of school is still a little strange to him, but he actually finds the information Izuku's classes are going over interesting. If he thinks about it too hard, his skin crawls a little bit at the fact that there's a whole other person lounging around in his brain. It's not Izuku specifically, of course, but Tanjiro assumes anyone would be weirded out if an entire human-shaped bundle of thoughts and emotions was tossed randomly into their head. Speaking of the human-shaped bundle, actually, Tanjiro finds himself pausing as he listens for Izuku. His normally rapid-fire thoughts have slowed into something drowsy. Tanjiro furrows his brow in concern. That isn't even. Though he's only been attached to the boy in the literal mental sense, for maybe a day, he can tell that's not normal. Tanjiro coalesces his own thoughts and shoves them aside, sending out He waits, but there's no response. Not even a single syllable from Izuku, who was ignoring him before. "Yeah, but this is different." He can feel it. Tanjiro tries again. "Izuku." A small stutter at that. Tanjiro fully stops, his sandals sliding against the dirt. The breeze that had felt so kind earlier suddenly whips at his face, and a chill skitters up his spine. Something is definitely wrong. He closes his eyes and tries to reach for Izuku's consciousness, but it feels like there's barely anything of the other boy there. There's a distance between them, a palpable sense of pulling away, and Tanjiro can't find him. He shoves away the panic rising in his throat, gritting his teeth. "Focus." He calls, "Hey, can you hear me?" A flicker, and the something blocking him off from Izuku weakens. Tanjiro can vaguely hear his confused thoughts, but it's like listening to words spoken underwater. He squeezes his eyes shut, shoving all the power he can into his words. "Izuku, snap out of it." A second passes, a single heartbeat that lasts an eternity, and then, the pain that slams into his brain is sudden but grounding. Izuku is there, all racing thoughts and kindness and nerves, and Tanjiro can finally breathe again. The other boy starts talking to someone, letting Tanjiro take a moment to let go of the panic that had swept into his mind. Zenitsu is watching him with damp eyes, but doesn't say anything. Tanjiro smiles at him reassuringly, even if his head is aching. Taking a deep breath and resuming his pace, Tanjiro watches the faintly rippling rice fields and wonders how, exactly, he's gotten so attached to someone he's known for barely a day. In a complete and original twist that no one saw coming, Izuku decides not to go to sleep. He'll have enough time for that tonight, right? Even enough time for Ida's insistence of 7 hours. Instead, he opens a fresh page in his quirk analysis notebook, titling the quirk simply as mindfuckery. Izuku leans back in his chair, tapping his pencil to his lips. He jots down the basic information. Mental quirk centered around telepathy, touch activated, actually, wait. Hey, Tanjiro, did a mutant-type guy with ram's horns ever touch you and kinda zap you? I don't think so. I did get the feeling of being zapped, but no one was touching me. Well, that was interesting. So the quirk is touch activated, but only on one side. How would that even dash? Does the dude just pick a random passerby on the street? Does he have to know the person to connect them with the person he's touching? Izuku tries to remember if he saw a guy lurking about by the mutant type, but he doesn't recall anything of the sort. Maybe this whole thing is a big scheme, though he's not sure exactly what the villains would get out of it. It's not a scheme, says Tanjiro, which is precisely what someone instigating a scheme would say. I'm just as confused as you are. Maybe we could meet in person? What village do you live in? First off, that is such a suspicious thing to say for someone claiming not to be a villain, Izuku grumbles, leaning back in his chair. And I currently live in the student dorms at UA, which is in Mizudafu. Unless you want the address of my mother's apartment, too? Tanjiro, who is apparently immune to sarcasm, assures him, no, that's okay. Where is Mizudafu exactly? In the Shizuoka prefecture? Tanjiro scrolls through a mental list of prefectures and comes up blank. And where is that? Oh my god. It's not my fault you somehow live somewhere I've never heard of. Tanjiro squawks defensively. Which is weird because I travel all over. Right? Izuku mutters. Where do you live? Maybe I can find you instead. I travel where I'm needed. So you don't, live anywhere? Not really. Some demon slayers have homes, but mostly we just travel. Tanjiro explains. That's what I'm doing right now, which is why I have nothing better to do than listen in on your classes. Wait, but Izuku frowns at his notebook. How old are you? And I'm assuming a demon slayer is what you are? I'm 15. Izuku gapes, setting his pen down. And you're going around with this weird cult or something? What about school? I didn't, don't go to school, Tanjiro tells him, his mind flashing back to his conversation with Zenitsu. He pretends he's not offended by the cult statement and asks instead, how old are you? Same as you. Izuku sighs at their circular conversation. Back to the topic at hand? Or, many hands ago. That doesn't make any sense. Shut up. Any ideas about the quirk? Namely, how to get rid of it? Izuku gets the vibe that Tanjiro's throwing his hands up in the air, frustration tinging his voice. I still have no idea what a quirk is, so no. Izuku really doesn't get how that's possible. How does someone just not know what a quirk is? Unless he's from a country with a really low quirk percentage, but he speaks Japanese. No, wait, he has a bit of an accent. So maybe he just learned Japanese for fun, since apparently he hasn't been to school? If he is from outside Japan, that would give Izuku so many more questions about this quirk because how? Then again, if he's from another, probably reclusive country, then his thing with demons could make sense. It could be their name for villains and the demon slayers could be their police force? Except, the whole eating thing he mentioned? Whoa, Tanjiro breaks in laughing a bit. You really can think fast, huh? No, I'm Japanese, born and raised. And I'm serious about the demons. They will eat you. They crave human blood, plus, that's how they gain power. Izuku rubs at his temples, letting himself just accept that for now. What's your power? Like, the ability you can do, that's unique to you. Water breathing? He trails off, but Izuku can still see the words that flash through his mind. Hinakami Kagura. Izuku decides to ignore that second one, since Tanjiro didn't seem to want to share it. Yeah. What's that? It's the technique I use? Tanjiro says hesitantly. But, well, it's not unique to me. Other swordsmen can do it too, if they're trained in it. Izuku sighs, foregoing his urge to throw the notebook at the wall. They weren't getting anywhere with this conversation. There's something missing, he can tell, a piece of information that will make everything click. But both of them seem clueless as to what it is, so they're scrambling around in the dark. His traitorous mind reminds him that figuring out the quirk would probably be easier if there were multiple brains on the case, but for that he'd have to tell someone and honestly he doesn't want to deal with that right now. The quirk couldn't last forever, right? You just jinxed us, Tanjiro grumbles. Or the dude would use it again and this usage of the quirk would be cancelled out. Even if it lasts longer than both of them are comfortable with, there are worse quirks to be stuck with. Worse people to have in your head, too, though the jury's still out on the moral status of Tanjiro's murderous tendencies. Thanks, Tanjiro says dryly. Think. I suppose you could be a demon, but you haven't had any thoughts about eating your classmates or drinking their blood, so I'll trust that you aren't. Izuku cannot tell if he's being genuine or not. Either way, he throws the other boy, so kind, and tries not to shudder as memories of Toga's maniacal grin and cooing voice rise in his brain. Now, if that is something close to Tanjiro's idea of demons, then he can't exactly blame the aforementioned murderous tendencies. So, are we going to talk about what happened earlier? Tanjiro asks, something in his tone going soft. Izuku grimaces. The memories of being barely able to think at all start to close in, but he pushes them away. He swears he won't ever take a functioning brain for granted again. Yes. It could have been that he was just tired earlier, but the feeling of being blocked from Tanjiro definitely wasn't normal. Izuku's still betting that it had something to do with the quirk, which, as mentioned earlier, is currently a mystery. He picks up his pencil again and taps it against his lips. It couldn't be a coincidence that he'd been cut off from Tanjiro and his own mind when Izuku had been trying to push him away all day, could it? Oh, Tanjiro murmurs. That would make sense. So if Izuku purposefully ignored Tanjiro, they wouldn't be stuck together, would they? So if he and Tanjiro both tried to shove each other away, would that break the quirk's hold? Would they be blocked from each other so much that they could separate their minds again? Hold on, Izuku. I don't think it would work like that, Tanjiro interrupts, his brain creating and connecting his own theories. We were still connected, but you were gone. I think it's fair to assume it was something with the quirk, but it didn't really separate us. A flash of memories sweeps across their shared mind. Tanjiro, panicked, reaching for someone he couldn't find, barely able to hear anything from his brain roomie. Izuku winces, guilt flaring in his lungs. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you worry. It wasn't your fault, Tanjiro says firmly as the memory dissipates. Honestly, Izuku, stop apologizing. It's not as if you stuck us together. Izuku blinks, a frustrated mix of gratefulness and guilt rising in his throat. It still was his fault though. I think that's the harshest I've ever heard you. He can almost feel how Tanjiro freezes. What? I wasn't harsh with you, right? I didn't mean it. Well, I meant it, but not like that. Izuku smiles, getting up from his chair and stretching his arms over his head. It was just a joke. Tanjiro grumbles something under his breath as Izuku heads downstairs, his stomach begging for food. He starts to rummage through the cabinets, but Bakugo slams the doors shut as he storms into the kitchen, barely missing Izuku's hands. Izuku glares at him, but Bakugo declares, "Don't ruin your appetite, you green beastie, I'm making dinner." "Oh, sure, Kaken," Izuku says indulgently, smiling as he pulls himself up to sit on the counter. "You could have just said that." "I just did, shitty nerd. And get your butt off the counter." Bakugo slams ingredients down next to him, some getting mildly scorched from his smoking hands. Izuku's pretty sure that's not proper food handling protocol. Unfortunately, Bakugo is too much of a good cook for Izuku to point that out. He's not willing to risk being banned from his food. "My but likes the counter, thank you very hey." Bakugo shoves him roughly with a shoulder, sending Izuku toppling backward, arms windmilling. His unfortunate descent is stopped with an arm around his chest. Kirishima laughs as he plops him on the ground, only slightly more gently than if Izuku had actually fallen. "You're heavier than you look," Kirishima tells him, shark-toothed grin flashing. "Must be all those manly muscles." "Bakubro, you can't push people off of counters, it's rude." Izuku is sure he looks like a disfigured strawberry as he scrambles off the floor. Bakugo snorts, turning away to start the rice cooker. "I can do whatever I please in my own demon kitchen." Izuku gives Kirishima an embarrassed thanks and slouches over to one of the couches, flopping backwards over the armrest so that his head barely misses Todoroki's leg. Mismatched eyes blink down at him, eyebrows just barely raised in an amused look. Izuku resists the urge to poke him. The boy looks more relaxed today, his features less stiff. Izuku's glad. It has been a while since Todoroki's gone home, and maybe they both could keep it that way. The longer Todoroki spent away from his father, the happier he. Izuku can feel Tanjiro's curiosity, of course, but his brain Brumi, knows when not to push, and it's not really Izuku's place to say anything. It's strange, really, when he thinks about the fact that he doesn't actually know that much about Tanjiro. Sure, they currently share a mind, but Izuku really just knows the boy's name, age, and status as a demon slayer, which still doesn't make any sense. Izuku's going to go with the other country theory for now, even if Tanjiro says he's Japanese. He could have moved, right? Izuku does know Tanjiro's mind, obviously, and personality, so it's not that he doesn't trust him. In fact, Tanjiro seems to be the most sincerely kind person he's ever met. It's just weird. Very weird. Voices float around him, laughs and swears and indignant squawks, possibly from Kaminari. The cushions are soft beneath him and his classmates are here and safe, Todoroki a steady presence beside him. His own mind begins to slow, the exhaustion from the day weighing down his bones. After a few minutes, the drowsiness takes him, and he doesn't even remember falling asleep. Izuku finds himself in darkness. The empty void stretches before him as far as he can see, unyielding in its sheer blankness. Izuku peers down at his body and is unsurprised to find it inky and smudged. He's not entirely sure why he can't manifest wholly in this place, but try as he might, he can't will the smoke away. An indistinct figure flickers to life in the distance. It tilts his head, and Izuku knows that it's watching him. Ninth, it rumbles. Its voice is male and deep, something that might have been soothing if Izuku didn't feel so unsettled. Something is here. Izuku tries to ask what, but as usual, the black mist is covering his mouth. He just exhales sharply, frustrated at his lack of being here. Another figure, this one more slight but still boasting broad shoulders, appears beside the first. It crosses its arms across its chest. Not something, it corrects, and it's a she, her voice strong. Someone is here who shouldn't be. Izuku grits his teeth, wishing they'd stop being so vague. These people or spirits or whatever want to tell him something, why don't they just say it outright? Izuku doesn't want to be stuck playing the guessing game until it blows up in his face. The figures seem to sense his annoyance, shifting a bit, but they don't say anything more. Instead, Izuku barely has time to blink before more figures manifest with the other two. He had just managed to count them 8, when they all lift their arms as one and point to something behind him. Izuku spins on his heel, unconsciously falling into a fighting stance. He blinks when he sees not another shadowy outline, but a full person, color and all. Their back is to him, but he can still see them. They're around his height, wearing a green and black checkered haori and flowy black pants that are tapered by white cloth bandages at the bottom. They have dark red hair, almost burgundy, and rectangular earrings swing towards their shoulders. He does not belong, the voices hiss, overlapping timbres and tones of agitation. Outside of our world, outside of our time, he does not belong. Izuku is hit chest by the feeling that he knows this person, regardless of the fact that he doesn't recognize their clothing. They're familiar to him in a way he can't explain. He takes a step forward, finding it strangely hard to move. The person shifts, tilting their head slightly, starts to turn. The void around Izuku fractures, shattering into pieces like glass. Images flash by, cracked and insubstantial, some he can identify and some he can't. You are rising over the crest of the hill, chasing 2 shrieking, grinning children, hugging a small toddler to his chest, fist bumping Uraraka, a dark-haired girl with pink eyes smiling at him, drinking coffee out of his favorite, gaudiest all-might mug, staggering through bloodied snow, muscular on top of him, crushing him into the ground and his lungs scream for air. Breathe, Wyken, breathe. Izuku is awake, gasping, and only Todoroki's hand keeps him from falling off the couch. Whoa, he says quietly, and it's the grip on his shoulder and the chatter of his friends that grounds Izuku. He forces himself to take slower breaths, letting himself relax again at the relief-soaked realization of it was just a nightmare. Are you okay? Todoroki asks as Izuku pulls himself into a sitting position. Fine, Izuku breathes, scrubbing a hand through his hair. Bad dream, that's all. Was that really all though? I don't think so, Tanjiro whispers, and thankfully Izuku doesn't startle this time. He's not entirely surprised that Tanjiro saw, except for the fact that the other boy seems to have an inkling as to what that was. He sounds pretty shaken, though Izuku can tell he's purposely holding back what he thinks he knows. Unfortunately, Izuku can't quiz him right now, not with so many people around. Still, though, Izuku can't keep his mind from spinning around the dream, even as he and his classmates congregate at the table for dinner. He's not sure if anyone tries to engage him in conversation, and he knows he should be paying more attention, but the images from the dream stand vividly in his mind's eye and he can't. He has no idea what some of them are, because they're definitely not from his head, and he replays them again and again, trying to analyze what they could have been referring to. The image of the pink-eyed girl keeps returning to the forefront of his mind, and he wonders why the edges of it are tinted with sadness. The second Izuku clicks his door shut after his escape from dinner, gently demands, "What do you know?" Tanjiro seems almost jittery, a nervous air surrounding his mental self. He'd been so silent during dinner that Izuku had come close to calling out to him multiple times to make sure he was still there. Now though it's as if a dam breaks. Torrents of swirling thoughts flood through their shared brain, sending Izuku to sit on the edge of his bed. That was me, those were mine, how are they in his head, how does he know? Hey, it's okay, Izuku says immediately. He didn't think that Tanjiro was the type to panic, honestly, but something about that dream was off. Can you breathe for me? Take a deep breath? He can't tell if the other boy does, but Tanjiro's thoughts start to calm after a few seconds. Izuku smiles. That's good. Maybe a little slower this time, okay? What do you mean, that was you? Tanjiro conjures up the memory, which is a bit weird because Izuku feels like it should be his memory, not Tanjiro's, even though the other boy also saw the dream of the dream boy in the checkered Haori. He doesn't have to say anything for it to click. That's you. Izuku breathes. He sits down hard on his bed, running a hand over his face. So the figures we're talking about you? Would make sense. Someone who isn't supposed to be here, in Izuku's brain and life. But what did the figures have to do with that? And what was the whole shattering thing? Some of those were his memories, yes, but the others those had been Tanjiro's memories, hadn't they? The forest, the kids, the girl, the snow. That was all him, except in Izuku's head and vice versa. Yes, Tanjiro whispers. That was my life. Why are they in your head now? Izuku puts his hands up, palms out, as if Tanjiro can see him. I have no idea. And I really don't know anything. Just those little images, that's all. And Tanjiro trails off, also recalling the bits and pieces of flashed memories. A surge of alarm pings through his thoughts, so strong that Izuku swears he can feel it. That was Dash. You were getting crushed. Izuku winces. A little? A little? Okay, more than a little. But I'm all right. That was a while ago. I don't think it matters how long ago it was. Tanjiro grumbles, something about friends with no self-preservation ringing through his head. Well, fair. His moniker of Lord Bonebreaker flits through his head, but he quickly explains he was going to kill a little boy, though. I didn't really have a choice. Ah, Tanjiro murmurs, and there's someone, that fills his mind, except he quickly pulls it away from Izuku's attention. Izuku holds his breath as a pang resonates through his chest, as heaviness cinches his lungs. I would do the same then. Izuku furrows his brow, hand coming up to press at the spot just under his ribs. The sudden thrum of emotion caught him off guard, and sure, he's no stranger to tears, but he doesn't really have cause for. A quiet fury leaks through his brain, and Izuku bites his lip. Tanjiro? He asks hesitantly. Are you sad right now? What? Tanjiro stutters out. Izuku can tell he wants to say no, but after a few seconds he acquiesces. A little, I guess. The quiet fury becomes louder, and Izuku draws up a leg and wraps his arms around it, holding it to his chest. Don't panic, he tells himself. Don't. It's just the quirk, except it's changing and this is not just telepathy anymore, this is something else. Talk to me, Tanjiro breaks in, already used to Izuku's rambling. But the heaviness had abated, and the other boy sounds so gentle, And there isn't even a thought in his mind about yelling at him to shut the F up, and Izuku thinks he might cry. I felt it, he blurts out, fingers returning to his chest. I could feel it. When you were sad. Like it was me that was sad, not you, except it was you, but I could feel it. Huh. Tanjiro manages after a few heartbeats, sounding a bit choked. Izuku buries his face in his hands. Is the quirk evolving? Why is it changing to empathy? How is it changing, especially since they're still telepathically connected but also with empathy now? Will it change more after this? Or is this some weird fluke? Or maybe it was always meant to have empathy but it's just now showing up. Izuku tries to recall what the Ram Man had told him, but he only remembers mentions of lessons and cause and effect. Nothing that would help him understand what the hell is going on with this quirk. I mean, we've dealt with the telepathy pretty well, right? Tanjiro says, though Izuku knows he's trying to convince himself as much as Izuku. Can't be too hard with the empathy, too. I hope so, Izuku whispers. Still, empathy is a whole other level of closeness, and if he can't tell where the emotion is coming from, things are going to get confusing fast. Well, things are already confusing with the quirk, of course, and with whoever Tanjiro really is. Outside of our world, outside of our time, he does not belong. Something about that tickles the back of Izuku's mind, but he catalogs it away for later. Right now, he really needs sleep. And he did get some. Only some, though, sadly. Izuku woke up with his blankets twisted around his legs and the lingering fear of a nightmare not quite remembered. He throws off the covers, sighing, and runs his hands through sweaty curls. A glance at his clock lets him know that it's 3:10 in the morning. Why, he wonders absently, is it always 3 a.m.? There's no answer from Tanjiro. Izuku sends out his mind and quickly finds the silent and asleep boy. At least one of them can get some rest. Izuku stays in bed for a few fruitless minutes, staring at the wall. It becomes apparent that he's not going back to sleep anytime soon, and Izuku groans quietly. This is just what he needs. It's not like he hasn't dealt with insomnia before. Him and sleepless nights are old friends, courtesy of his wandering brain, but he feels it's criminal that he was so tired earlier, and now he can't actually get to sleep. He sits up, casting his gaze over his darkened room towards his desk. If he's going to be awake, he might as well be productive, right? He's already slightly behind as it is, since he, got hit with this hellish quirk. Maybe it's the quirk that keeps him from blessed sleep, Izuku thinks as he crawls out of bed, dragging his blanket with him. Maybe only one of them can sleep at a time. Wouldn't that be horrendous? He sighs again as he stares at his messy, it's called controlled chaos, desk. Honestly, if he's going to do school work at 3 in the goddamn morning, then he's going to get food. One requires the correct sustenance for late-night homework. He traipses down the stairs, leaving his blanket behind. The dorms are dark and silent, and Izuku's own breathing sounds loud to his ears. He revels in the fact that his mind is entirely his for now, his thoughts alone and meandering as they should be. He can still sense Tanjiro though, kind of like how you can't see someone in the dark, but you know they're there. It's a little weirder than that and definitely disconcerting, although Izuku admits that it's kind of comforting too. He nearly jumps out of his skin as he catches the glint of eyes already in the kitchen, a tall figure taking a mug down from a cupboard. Izuku slides a bit closer, deflating as his eyes adjust to the poor lighting, and he recognizes lavender hair. Oh, Shinso. You scared the shit out of me. What are you doing up? A poor choice of question, he guesses, because it's Shinso, but whatever. The taller boy studies him, mug still in his grasp. Izuku shuffles a bit in the silence. He's not exactly friends with Shinso, really, not for lack of trying. They're familiar, sure, but they're more of acquaintances than anything. Izuku's not entirely sure why Shinso dislikes him so much, but Izuku doesn't like Izuku either, so it's okay. Still, though, he wishes Shinso would open up a bit more to his classmates, Izuku included. The only person he really hangs out with is Kaminari, and that seems mostly because he can't get Kaminari to leave him alone. The lone wolf thing must get tiring, Izuku thinks, but Shinso seems like he's tired all the time anyway. I could ask you the same thing, Shinso says finally. He glances down. You wear socks to sleep? Izuku laughs nervously, tucking his hands behind his back. I know it's weird. It is, Shinso tells him flatly. He turns and starts filling his mug with water before placing it in the microwave. Oh, we have a kettle, Izuku says, moving towards the cupboards to search for Bakugo's snack stash. The blonde moves it to a different location almost every day to keep people from finding it, but Izuku always does, anyway. I thought you were more of a coffee person, honestly. And wake up the entire dorm? Shinso points out dryly. I am a coffee person. I'm also a tea person. I'm not exclusive. Izuku purses his lips, trying to decipher if that last part is a barb directed at him. It's hard to tell with Shinsu's deadpan way of talking, like Aizawa-sensei, but it probably is. I'm not exclusive, he protests. I don't even can dash. His world goes blank. You can see. Shinso can hear the buzzing of the microwave, but he's frozen, his mind empty, and for a second panic eats at his throat as he remembers yesterday and almost losing himself. He has to remind himself that it's just Shinso, and it was most likely an accident and he'll be released any second now. Then everything goes black. When Izuku blinks and comes back to himself, he's still standing in the kitchen. Shinso is still across from him, and Izuku thinks, okay, just a weird mishap. He might have done something. Tanjiro whispers suddenly. Izuku blinks. He hadn't felt him wake up. Izuku meets Shinso's gaze and, with a jolt, processes the horrified look on his face. Oh, it's okay. Izuku rushes to say. I know accidents happen, you're good. Shinso just keeps staring at him. Slowly he says, what? The F dash. Izuku tilts his head. I said dash. No. Shinso cuts him off roughly. He seems rattled, his voice losing its usual carefully constructed apathy. Someone was just talking. Someone was using your mouth to talk and it wasn't you. Izuku feels his stomach bottom out. He opens his mouth, but no words come out. Shit, he chants mentally. Tanjiro? Yeah, it was me, Tanjiro confirms. I have no idea how that happened, I'm so sorry. It's okay, Izuku says aloud, though this was clearly far from okay. He presses a hand to his temple for a second. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it? Shinso repeats incredulously. Midoriya. Someone was just using your body to talk, and you are trying to tell me not to worry about it. His gaze turns steely as Izuku stays quiet. He crosses his arms over his chest and demands, explain. Izuku can tell he's shrinking, pulling his arms in and letting his shoulders rise, making himself look smaller. He hates that tendency in particular. Heroes are strong, not small and weak. They don't shy away from confrontation, and yet Izuku can't help running away. Shinso blinks at him, suddenly letting his arms fall and taking a step back. Before the other boy can say anything, Izuku blurts out, I may or may not have been hit by a quirk. He winces immediately, dropping his eyes. He wants to flee, to dive back into his comforter and never come back out again. He can feel Shinsu's gaze on him like a cement block, the purple-haired boy silent as the grave. Izuku clenches his fists, fingernails biting into his palms, the pain grounding him. Shinso sighs, a long, weighty thing, and he reaches up to pinch the bridge of his nose. Midoriya. Izuku toes the floor with his socked foot, still unable to look at Shinso. It wasn't my fault. I figured, Shinso says, making relief bubble in Izuku's chest. Why didn't you say anything? What does the quirk do? Izuku bites his lip, shifting his weight from foot to foot. It put a person in my head. Shinso plops his face into his hands, leaning against the counter behind him. How do you always do this? And what? It's the telepathy quirk? Or mostly, I think. I'm kind of sharing a mind right now. Izuku says weakly. I mean, it's not the worst quirk to be hit with. Right? Shinso mutters, giving him an only you look. So you're stuck with someone? Is it a villain? And how the F, did they just speak out of you? No, he's nice. Even if he's sometimes murderous. I'm as confused as you with the whole using me thing. He said he didn't mean to, so. Shinso waves hand, reaching over to pull a tea bag out of a drawer. What I really want to know is why you didn't tell Aizawa-sensei. His eyes narrow. You were late yesterday because of the quirk, weren't you? Yeah, I got hit, 2 days ago. Was kind of hard to get used to at first. Izuku weaves his fingers together anxiously. You're not going to tell sensei, are you? Hell yeah I am, Shinso says, immediate and viscously unapologetic. If this is affecting your school life, then yes. But Shinso. Izuku sputters, finally looking at the boy. You can't. Give me one reason. I can function. Izuku insists desperately. I'm fine, really, all the quirk does is link you with someone else. And I have no idea who he is, and he doesn't even live nearby. He's not a villain either, or at least I'm pretty sure he's not. Seriously, Shinso, this isn't a big deal. Shinsu's violet eyes study him, glinting in the low light. He puts the tea bag in his mug, which is now on the counter. How did Izuku miss that? Bobs it around before asking in a low tone, what's the real reason? What? Izuku says on reflex, inching away a bit from his classmate. That is . No, Shinso interrupts him for the second time that night. Tell me the real reason you're keeping this to yourself. Izuku wraps his arms around himself without thinking, looking off to the left of Shinso. He's going to laugh at me, he thinks miserably. This is so stupid. You should tell him anyway, Tanjiro murmurs, who of course can tell very well what the reason is. I don't think he's going to laugh, even if he's, an a-hole? Izuku can tell Tanjiro is smiling a bit, even if he won't admit it. Oh yeah. Izuku snorts out loud, causing Shinso to look at him sharply. A raised eyebrow is the only comment he offers, though. Finally, Izuku takes a deep breath and answers quietly, I don't want him to be mad at me, I guess. Surprisingly, Shinso does not laugh. He just takes a sip of his tea and says slowly, that was not the reason I imagined. Oh, is all Izuku manages. He won't be mad at you though, Shinso tells him. He's probably used to it by now. Izuku knows that he's teasing, but he can't help the way his skin prickles. Yeah. He probably is. His voice comes out more forlorn than intended, and he looks away. Shinso watches him. He appears to be very fond of watching people and making them feel unnerved, because that's happened a fair amount just tonight. Izuku wonders when exactly his classmate picked up this habit, and why he felt he needed it. Shinso takes another sip of tea before stating, I won't tell him. Izuku jerks his gaze up. You won't. Only because the quirk doesn't seem harmful to you, Shinso stresses. And also I want you to keep me updated with whatever the hell's going on. Got it? Got it, Izuku echoes. He's not sure what he's getting himself into with that agreement, honestly. He's surprised Shinso would even care to make that condition. I'll make a friend out of him yet, Izuku thinks, somewhere between hopeful and aggressive. Good, Shinso pushes himself away from the counter. Now I'm going upstairs with my tea, and you should go to bed. I doubt either of us want a repeat of, he gestures vaguely at Izuku. This. He starts towards the stairs but pauses, turning his head slightly to look at Izuku. He then says something Izuku wouldn't ever expect to come out of his mouth. I'm glad you told me. Then he disappears up the stairs, leaving Izuku with the faint scent of cinnamon and citrus. Tanjiro wakes, unfortunately, and he wakes quite suddenly. He'd fallen asleep near the fire after Izuku had swapped watches with him. He'd been exhausted, more exhausted than a day of traveling usually warranted, but with a person in your head and the revelation that you can now feel each other's emotions, one has every right to get tired. Still, though, he hates it. He doesn't want to be at such a low level of energy when they're traveling, because you never know when a demon could pop up, and he could turn out to be useless. His reflexes slow considerably when he's tired, and he doesn't want to get injured just because of some weird demon art magic. He falls asleep remarkably fast, the soft noises of the forest and the crackling of the fire working just as well as his mother's lullabies once had. He doesn't remember what he was dreaming about, or even if he was dreaming, when he's pulled from his sleep. Tanjiro pushes himself up to his knees, not seeing any immediate threat in the near vicinity. Izuku is sitting against a tree a few yards away, muttering to himself. Zenitsu is starfished across from Tanjiro, snoring, and Nezuko is curled peacefully by his side. He smiles softly and runs his fingers through a strand of her hair. She lets out a small sound and leans into the touch, even in sleep. For the uncountable time, Tanjiro thanks whoever's listening that she wasn't torn away from him like the others. Turning his attention inward, he listens for Izuku. All is quiet from the other boy, so Tanjiro assumes he's asleep and lies back down. He starts to count the stars that are visible above the forest canopy, feeling his breathing evening out again. He chokes on a breath, however, when he checks in on Izuku again and realizes the other boy is not asleep. "Izuku?" he calls, some of the franticness building in his chest leaking through. It's not like last time. Tanjiro can still feel the other boy's presence, but it's as if he's frozen. He's there, he's awake, but he's unresponsive. Not just in the way that he's ignoring Tanjiro, because even then Tanjiro knows he's acknowledging him and choosing to not reply. No, Izuku isn't replying because he can't. Taking a deep breath, Tanjiro gathers whatever mental power he can and shoves. He's trying to crack the ice that's keeping Izuku frozen, trying to break whatever is keeping him from reaching Tanjiro, but something between them snaps. Tanjiro is tossed into a horrible rushing sensation, like the feeling of being on top of the train and air whipping past him, but worse. Nausea roils in his stomach as his vision blacks out, and right as he thinks he's going to either throw up or pass out, his sight restores itself and he can breathe again. Except he isn't looking at the stars, or the smoldering remains of their fire, or Nezuko. He's standing in some sort of unfamiliar room, staring at a tall boy with lilac hair that is somehow curving upward. Tanjiro blinks. "Izuku?" The boy startles, taking a step back. What? Are you Izuku?" Tanjiro asks again. The boy's expression rapidly changes from surprise to disbelief to what the fuck. His tone is wary when he speaks. "You're Izuku." "What?" Tanjiro glances down at his hands. Strange, pale palms look back at him, scars twisting across the right one. "These are not my hands," he realizes. "No, are you sure?" "Am I sure?" the boy repeats, jaw clenching. "Yeah, I'm pretty damn sure you're Midoriya Izuku." Tanjiro continues to stare at his hands, slowly turning them over and flexing his fingers. He studies his arms to find them covered in tiny freckles, and a short black sleeve peeks out from under his shirt. He pokes at it experimentally, and frowns when the skin underneath it doesn't register the touch. He leaves it be, though, and turns back to the other boy. "Huh. Why do you have an accent?" the boy demands. He takes another step back, and Tanjiro realizes he's scared. Tanjiro is scaring him. "Actually, how are you talking when you're under my quirk when I didn't tell you to?" "Accent?" Tanjiro furrows his eyebrows. "I don't have an accent. This is just how I talk." "No what? You're talking with an accent right now." You don't have an accent," the boy demands, glaring daggers at Tanjiro. "Who are you?" Tanjiro hums, tiling his head. "I don't think he wants me to tell you." "Let me talk to him then." The boy's voice is hard as steel. "You know what, actually? I'll find him myself." Tanjiro isn't sure what the boy does, but the rushing sensation comes back, except somehow the opposite way than before. This time, he's prepared for the blackout. When he thuds back into himself, he shudders and rolls onto his side, clutching his stomach. He'd live a happy life if he never has to go through that again. In his mind, Izuku unfreezes, thoughts slamming back into existence. Tanjiro cringes as he listens to his conversation with Shinso, who must be the boy he talked to. He might have done something," Tanjiro tells Izuku quietly. He manages to return to counting stars, his breathing slowing, trying not to think about not just being thrown into someone else's head, but someone else's body, talking to their classmate and taking over their life. Tanjiro hides his face in his hands, letting the familiar calluses remind him that, right now, he's okay, Izuku's okay, and they can work through this. They have to chapter text. This is probably not the best way to do this, Tanjiro tells him. Izuku ducks his head down to avoid whacking it on the top of the vents as he makes a tight turn. "Shush, of course it is. Right? Let me know when you get caught." Izuku peeks through the slits of a vent as he carefully passes over it. He can hear Hatsume's estranged laughter from here while Power Loader makes obscene gestures, his mouth probably matching those with obscene words. Izuku cackles quietly to himself. Now, one might question why the hell a small 15-year-old is crawling around UA in the school's ventilation system. And that would be a stupid question, if the small 15-year-old in question is Midoriya Izuku. The question that should really be asked is why the vents are big enough to fit a small 15-year-old. Like really, they don't have to be this big. And yet, Izuku fits comfortably and is making far better time to class than if he had to navigate the hallways and other students. Okay, yeah, he does have to navigate the vents too, but he can always peek down and assess his position. Plus, he's not exactly unfamiliar with the vents. Not that anyone knows that, of course. Except Nedzu, because the rat-mouse-bear principal knows everything. Actually, Izuku's theory on why the vents are so big is because Nedzu himself likes to slither through them. It's hardly the weirdest thing the principal has done. Rat-mouse-bear? Tanjiro asks, sounding amused. Yeah, no one quite knows what he is, Izuku informs him. But he's really, really smart and really, really scary. And how did an animal come to be in charge of your, hero school? That's a really good question. Izuku tells him cheerfully. He activates One for All and bounces between opposite walls of the vents to manage the steep incline. It beats running upstairs, in his opinion. If anyone hears the clanging of a ricocheting teenager in the vents, well, he hopes they won't bring it up. Besides, Nedzu can't keep the vents all to himself. He's the one that made them this size, anyway, so he really shouldn't be surprised that others would monopolize them. It's free real estate, Izuku whispers, barely holding back another cackle as he passes by a vent. What? Izuku gasps dramatically, clutching at his chest. Oh uncultured one! How hast thou lived without the enlightenment of Vin Dash? In his moment of distraction, Izuku slides forward without noticing the slitted opening beneath him. He yelps as it swings open under his weight. Next thing he knows, he's tumbling but over tea kettle and in half a second flat. He's staring at a familiar ceiling and a pathetically swinging vent. Aizawa-sensei peers at him from his sleeping bag, an eternal sigh escaping his lips. A GPS voice announces in Izuku's head, "You have arrived at your destination." He resists the urge to cover his face with his hands and wonders why the floor hasn't opened up to swallow him yet. Problem child. You just fell from the ceiling, Aizawa-sensei says long-sufferingly. Why? Izuku, unfortunately, says the first thing that comes to mind. Sorry, my spawn point must have glitched. Aizawa-sensei blinks at him slowly. What? A few snickers drift around the room, and Izuku gets to his feet to find a fair number of his classmates assembled in their seats. He offers no explanation to Aizawa-sensei as he accepts a low 5 from Siro and slides into his chair. Kaminari has a sheet-eating grin on his face as he says knowingly, "Oh, dude, that happens to me all the time." Right. Ashido giggles. She looks absolutely delighted by the turn of events. Tanjiro is laughing a bit too, though it seems more from the effect of Izuku's own amusement since Tanjiro is wholeheartedly confused. Aizawa-sensei stares at them for what must be a solid minute without blinking. Then he sighs heavily and pulls himself out of his sleeping bag with a mutter that sounds suspiciously like, "Hey teenagers." You know what, you're definitely right, Tanjiro says. I have no idea why he hasn't killed you yet. If he smacks his own face, Izuku wonders, would it transmit to Tanjiro, too? I have never been more offended, Tanjiro says, in a deadpan voice that conveys the exact opposite of his words. And I think it would hurt you as much as me, so there's really no winning there. Oh, shut up. Are you hungry or is that me? Tanjiro asks with a sigh. Izuku shoulders his bag as he heads back across campus, dim voices chattering in the distance. He bites his lip, grimacing. I think that's me. I'll find a snack when I get to the dorms. He has the brief thought of, I wonder what cardboard dust tastes like? And then proceeds to go what the F-brain. But his brain has a point. I'll just pretend that I know what that means, Tanjiro mutters. Dude, you cannot tell me you've never liked cardboard before, Izuku tells him, though he's trying not to laugh. It has a really distinct taste, so if, say, Shigaraki dissolved a cardboard box, would the dust retain that taste? What's cardboard? Izuku snickers a little, although it's an aghast snicker. First quirks, now cardboard, he teases. What else has society failed you on? Hey, you didn't know about demons before this. Tanjiro squawks indignantly. So, don't go out at night alone and stuff. Great. Truly helpful. Thank you. Sadly, the dorm kitchen doesn't stock cardboard. However, there are month-old crackers stashed in the back of a cabinet, so there's that. Or he could punch a wall to get a piece of drywall, but Aizawa-sensei might question his sanity at that point. Honestly, Izuku questions his sanity sometimes too, so his sensei isn't special. He cuts up a pear instead, climbing up to his room and sitting on his desk chair. He spins in idle circles as he eats, then plugs in his earbuds. Gentle guitar and a soft voice fills his head and Izuku sighs, leaning back in his chair and closing his eyes. They fly open again when Tanjiro startles hard enough for Izuku to feel it. He jerks and asks quickly, "What? What the hell is that?" Tanjiro demands, and wow, that's the first time Izuku's heard him curse besides quoting his friend. He's tempted to applaud, but alas, there's other things he has to deal with. Don't tell me you don't know what music is, Izuku groans. Really, dude, how? I know what music is, Tanjiro huffs, rolling his eyes. But where is it coming from? My earbuds? What? Izuku runs a hand through his hair. I don't even know where to begin explaining earbuds to you. How do you live, honestly? Are the Demon Slayers some kind of weird Amish-like group? Is that what this is? You're not allowed to have technology? No what? It's true that technology advanced really fast while I was training, but I've never heard of earbuds. Then what? Izuku trails off. Last night, there was something about what the figures in the dream had said Tanjiro doesn't know about quirks, or heroes, or cardboard, or earbuds, but has some form of technology. Something about this isn't adding up. Outside of our world, outside of our time, he does not belong. His stomach flips, almost painfully. They hadn't meant, there was no way. Oh, Izuku says aloud. Oh no. He brushes off Tanjiro's questioning thoughts and whispers, What year is it, Tanjiro? Tanjiro seems to catch on, his thoughts faltering. Still, he answers hesitantly, we're in the Taisho PRD right now? Izuku's phone tumbles out of his hand, but he barely registers it as it hits the floor. His earbuds jerk out his ears, music blaring tinnily from the tiny speakers. It's one thing to have a quirk stick a stranger in your head. It's entirely another if that stranger is from the past. All those shifting, lonesome puzzle pieces Izuku had been collecting snap together, and it's so obvious now. Tanjiro's lack of general knowledge, his accent from speaking a dialect long since past, his confusion about quirks in particular. He's from a pre-quirk era. I don't know what that means, Tanjiro says apologetically, though his voice is strained. You're saying you're from the future? Izuku buries his face in his hands. The Taisho PRD was hundreds of years ago, at the beginning of the 20th century. No wonder they've been so out of sync about information and locations. Everything Tanjiro knows is hundreds of years old, and everything Izuku knows is hundreds of years in the goddamn future. Well, Tanjiro SAS Weekly. This is new. No sheet, Sherlock. Izuku lets out a tiny laugh that is definitely not born of hysteria. Nope. He reaches for his earbuds again, letting the music drown out the oncoming panic. This is fine. It was already weird. I can work with this. It doesn't really make much of a difference. Except that we have literally no way of actually contacting each other, Tanjiro points out. Which might have helped us break whatever this is. Tanjiro, politely, shut the F up. I'm trying to be positive about this. Tanjiro throws his mind around for a distraction. Music. What's your music about? What language is that? Izuku accepts the topic change thankfully. It's in English, he tells his brain Rumi. Izuku had watched so many American hero films and looked at so many American comic books that he's pretty much fluent. It's nice that he has an easier class here along with the other ones that seem set on drowning him with assignments. He's talking about how he's like, wasabi? Art is art, I guess. Izuku snorts, but closes his eyes as he props a knee up on his chair. He can envision the exact expression on Aizawa-sensei's face if his teacher found out about this. the disappointment set to his mouth and the sigh of, problem child. Izuku winces and banishes the image, leaning back in his chair. The soft voice singing in his ear helps bring his breathing back to normal, and he runs a hand through his hair. They might be able to break the quirk if they could find the ram-horn guy, but Izuku wouldn't know where to even start looking. He probably should tell Aizawa-sensei. Except he really doesn't want to. Izuku nearly falls out of his chair when he peeks his eyes open to find Shinso staring at him. He flails for a second to regain his balance, before pulling the earbuds out. Hey Shinso? You good? Shinso asks, something that doesn't quite fit his rough tone. Fine. Izuku drops his leg to the ground, sending a mental scowl to a laughing Tanjiro. Is there, something you need? Shinso plops down on the floor, leaning back against Izuku's bed. He studies Izuku for a few seconds, eyes just barely narrowed. His white pupils, Izuku decides, can be kind of unsettling. Finally, he says, tell me about your friend. Izuku cuts himself off. Of course he's talking about Tanjiro, dammit. He glances over at the door to make sure it's shut. Oh, what do you want to know? Shinso presses his lips together, considering. Start with the quirk. What do you know? Izuku wrings his fingers, glancing towards his notebook set askew on his desk. He sighs a bit. Not much. It's a mental quirk, obviously, touch activated on one side. I thought it was just telepathy-based, except, he shakes his head. It's really confusing. Touch activated? Shinso asks, an eyebrow creeping upward. I thought you were hit with a stray quirk? Izuku feels his face flush and he drops his gaze. I mean, it wasn't quite stray, but I don't think he was. A villain? Shinso blinks at him slowly. You said that about your friend too. Midoriya, someone using their quirk intentionally on you without a license is against the law. Which very well means he might be a villain. I know, Izuku lets out a frustrated sigh. Never mind. Anyway, it's really complicated, but Tanjiro is fine. We're both fine, we just have to wait until it wears off. And if it doesn't? Izuku rubs a hand over his face. Then I don't know, Shinso. We can't exactly meet up in person, and I have no idea where the guy went after he used his quirk on me. My friend and I have gone over this, and we can't figure a way out. Shinso crosses his arms over his chest. As in he doesn't live in Japan, or? Well, Izuku bites his lip, sending a quick message to Tanjiro asking if he's okay with telling Shinso. Tanjiro confirms, though nerves shoot through both of them. Izuku unconsciously drops his voice. He's from the past. The Teisho PRD. Excuse me? Shinso is staring at him as if Izuku said he steals the other's hair while he's asleep. Tanjiro snorts at that. How in the hell? I have no clue. Izuku throws his hands up, nearly smacking his desk. Not only that, but the quirk FING changed. I thought it was just telepathy, right? It started out as telepathy, but no, now it's telepathy and empathy. What kind of quirk does that? Shinso stares at him, mouth open, before shaking his head. Should I use my quirk on you again? See if I can talk to him? He doesn't know anything either, Izuku says. He said he wasn't touched by anyone, even though he felt the same effects of the quirk. And he's not trying to hide anything. I can tell, since I'm in his head as much as he's in mine. Shinso leans his head back against Izuku's mattress. DMN. Sounds pretty nightmarish in there. What's he like anyway? Izuku considers, replaying their conversations and Tanjiro's thought patterns, the little snatches of personality shining through every one. A spark of warmth lights in Izuku's chest, and he smiles softly. He's just so genuinely kind. Even when he gets frustrated about the quirk. His mind is gentle, and he's just warm. Izuku's smile grows, turning into something a bit more mischievous. But he will throw hands when necessary. Tanjiro nearly chokes, but Izuku can feel the smile that stretches across his face. Shinsu's head is tilted slightly, his normally bored features taking on a softer touch. It's the closest thing to a smile that Izuku's seen on him, at least when he's talking to Izuku. Seems like you got stuck with a past you. It takes a moment for the meaning of those words to register. Izuku's jaw drops and he splutters, what? No, I'm not. I thought you hated me. Which is fine and all, but... Shinso hums a little. I used to, before I knew you. I thought you were the golden boy of you, praised and with an endless ego because of your perfect quirk. Izuku opens his mouth, incredulity shooting through him, but Shinso continues. I mean, you are. Literally everyone loves you, but now I know you. Well, I can't think of anyone better for a quirk like yours. All Izuku can do is stare. There's a faint dusting of pink on Shinso's cheekbones, but he doesn't look away. Izuku's throat constricts, the familiar burning sensation of tears rising behind his eyes. He curls his hands into fists, clutching the hem of his shirt, and whispers, You really think that? If you cry, I will too, Tanjiro complains, but there's no harshness in it. In fact, there's a strange gentleness, a happiness budding in Tanjiro's lungs, and it's not for himself. Shinso rolls his eyes, shooting him a look of fond exasperation. I wouldn't have said it if I didn't, dumbass. Oh, Izuku squeaks, blinking quickly to ward off the embarrassment of tears. The warmth that had sparked in his chest only grows, something fragile and hopeful rising with it. That's really nice of you. Shinso lifts a shoulder. Yeah, well, figured it needed to be said. Izuku releases the hem of his shirt, locking gazes with lavender irises. I don't hate you either, he says quietly, a small smile tugging at the edges of his lips. Just so you know. As if you're capable of hating anyone, Shinso scoffs, ducking his head, but not before Izuku sees that the pink on his cheekbones has darkened. Izuku lets the small smile grow, and finds that he's still smiling after Shinso leaves. It seems he's made another friend and he didn't even have to break any bones this time. Excuse me? Izuku bursts into laughter, almost doubling over as euphoria overtakes him, because they're okay, he and Shinso are okay, and even though the quirk is still going strong, things are finally starting to feel alright again. The snow crunches under his feet, cold biting at his cheeks, and he treks up the mountain. The trees sway serenely above him, their branches laden down with the fresh layer of snow that fell during the night. His empty basket thumps against his back, and he can't help but feel proud that he'd sold all the charcoal. Maybe they would have a little extra money this time, and he'd be able to get a treat for his siblings. Then the scent of blood fills his nose. The basket falls to the ground and he runs. The snow is stained pink and red, colors that look so pretty at sunset but so wrong painted across the ground. Nezuko lies limp outside the doorway, her arm wrapped around Rokuta as if to protect him. Crimson is puddled around them and they're not moving, they're not. He stumbles forward, a wordless, inhuman sound escaping his lips. He finds the front door thrown open and torn to shreds, and the smell of blood is overpowering, so strong it makes his head pound. His hand clenches around the doorframe as he slides to his knees, vision blurring. Unseeing eyes surround him, tiny bodies splattered with more blood than he thought possible. Mother is slumped against the wall, shoulder partly shielding Hanako. Takeo stares at him with empty maroon irises from where he was thrown carelessly over Shigeru. His lungs won't work, he's gasping for air, he can't breathe, they're gone, they're all gone. Rokuta is crying, sobbing, and he turns slowly to find his baby brother in the doorway, blood marring his face. Takeo tilts his head from where he lays, the scarf wrapped around his neck no longer blue. Where were you when Rokuta wails. We needed you. What the hell were you doing while we were being murdered, huh? Takeo spits. You should have been here. The one time it mattered, the only time we really needed you, and you weren't here. Hanako grasps at his sleeve, her fingers leaving bloody streaks on the checkered pattern. Where were you? She whispers. I'm sorry, he says, tears of his own spilling over. I'm sorry, I'm Dash. His mother's soft voice cuts through his useless pleas. Sorry doesn't change anything, she tells him in that gentle, firm tone she used to use when scolding him. It should have been you. His hand wraps around the handle of his katana, the grip and weight of it oh so familiar. The blade shakes as he lifts it. Just one cut. One cut is all that it would take. He has to wake up. He knows he has to. The room spins around him, the bodies of his family disappearing into smoke. The sounds of Tsuzumi fill his ears, and the room shifts again, sending him slamming into a wall. His breath catches in his throat and he coughs, ribs aching as he forces himself to his feet to face the demon. Kyogai stares at him with narrowed blood-red eyes, clawed hands poised to strike at his Tsuzumi again. He opens his mouth to speak, but instead of the demon's own gravelly tone, it's his mother's voice that passes his lips. It should have been you. He slams his palm onto the Tsuzumi on his left thigh, sending him reeling backward. The demon strikes again, and again and again, and he's falling but not, suspended in the air as the room spins and spins and wakeup. His knees strike the ground, the cold wetness of snow leaching into his pants. He snaps his head up, katana held out in front of him. His hands drip with blood, red spilling between his fingers. He remembers a demon, pale-skinned and blue-eyed, arms spread out wide and laughing as he traps him again and again. He has to get out. He raises the katana, sets the deadly edge at his neck, just one cut. That's all it takes. Somewhere behind him, Shigeru cries out, "Don't leave us behind, Tanjiro! Nisn't, come back, come back!" The metal bites into the skin of his throat, and one more body joins the others. Izuku gasps, emerald eyes flying open. His pillow is wet below him, salt staining his lips. His chest heaves, breaths coming unevenly, and God, what was that, what was? Blindly, he reaches out and grabs onto the soft presence that is Tanjiro, making sure. He's still there, not letting the warmth of the other boy's mind draw him back into the real world. Except Tanjiro is crying. The ache tears up his throat, ripping up his chest, and Tanjiro is crying, not silent tears, but the shaking, overwhelming sobs that come from a place of pain. Izuku blinks, a sharp, wet inhale hissing through his teeth as his mind fully registers the dream, nightmare. He squeezes his eyes shut, causing more tears to flow down his face. His hands fist tightly in his blanket, and he doesn't remember making the decision to call out. "Tanjiro? I can't," Tanjiro gasps. I can't, they're dead, they're all, I'm sorry." Izuku doesn't know what to say. He doesn't know if he can say anything. Because what is there that he can tell Tanjiro? "I'm sorry? I understand?" Izuku doesn't even come close to understanding. Sure, he's been faced with death before, but not like this. Not his family, not people he was close to, not him finding them. What the hell were you doing while we were being murdered, huh? All he can do is press his mind as close to Tanjiro's as he can, to try to offer some form of comfort by just being there, making sure Tanjiro knows he's not alone. He's not sure if it slips the other boy's attention how much Izuku is crying too. Getting up in the morning is a feat, one that Izuku is kind of surprised he manages. His eyes are still sore from last night, and he swears he can feel the weight of his eye bags. Thankfully, when he glances in the mirror, his eyes are nothing more than slightly red-rimmed. Crying before you fall asleep is the best way to erase the evidence of those tears, Izuku knows. Still, the nightmare lies heavily on his shoulders as he heads slowly down the stairs. The image of tiny corpses, the bloodied bodies of children haunts his mind's eye. And the end of the dream, where Tanjiro, Izuku gives himself a shake, digging his fingernails into the skin of his palms. It was just a dream. Tanjiro is still here. Tanjiro doesn't say anything. He's been quiet since the nightmare, his mind distant. Rationally, Izuku knows that he's not shutting him out because of anything Izuku did, but he wishes Tanjiro would talk to him and let him know he's okay. Idiot, Izuku chastises himself immediately. Of course he's not okay. His classmate's trade looks over his head as he emerges into the common area. Izuku pretends not to notice as he fills his water bottle. Uraraka bumps his shoulder lightly as they head towards the school. "You okay, Deku? No offense, but you look like hell." Izuku ducks his head, forcing the feeling of a katana at his throat away. He makes sure his tone is as light as possible when he replies, "Yeah, I'm okay, thanks for asking. Just kind of a rough night, I guess." Uraraka's soft brown eyes widen. "Oh, that's the case. I get nightmares too, sometimes. You know, about the USJ and the training camp and stuff." So I know that you mean. Nightmares are more than common. Midoriya, Ida says from his other side, in a tone that constitutes as gentle for him. Especially with the unprecedented amount of villain attacks we've had. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Izuku murmurs a quiet thanks, though he winces on the inside. He hates the thought of his friends getting nightmares because all for one had thrown Shigaraki at him. They all got caught up in his mess just because they're in his class. He wonders if his classmates wish that they were in 2A, instead, where they wouldn't be stuck in the crossfire. Not that they know it's crossfire, but still. His classes go about as smoothly as possible when one has had little sleep. Aizawa-sensei eyes him from his desk as he talks, and Izuku tries not to shrink away from his gaze. He has the urge to chant "Don't be suspicious," but he doesn't think Tanjiro would appreciate it right now. Izuku sighs. It's not as if Tanjiro's silence is strange. He's been quiet a lot, especially while Izuku's in school. But this is a different sort of silence, and with the nightmare still vivid in his head, Izuku longs to talk to his friend. He knows, though, that this is Tanjiro asking for space, and Izuku would be a shitty person if he didn't give it to him. Thanks. Tanjiro's small whisper almost makes Izuku drop his pencil. I need a little time to get my head on straight, that's all. Oh no, that's more than fine. Izuku assures him quickly. Don't worry about it. I mean, I can't really go anywhere, right? Tanjiro sends a hum of acknowledgement back. And it's not that Izuku feels better, he's not sure he can, not with the sound of a little boy sobbing ringing in his ears, but now that Tanjiro's voiced what he needs, Izuku knows what he can do to help. Even if it's keeping his distance for now. Shinso catches him in the hall as they leave Quirk history. The lavender-haired boy looks him up and down before raising an eyebrow. Did a hurricane tie that tie for you? Izuku huffs, turning to head down the hallway. A simple, "Hi Midoriya, you look like sheet," would do. "Hi Midoriya, you look like sheet," Shinso says obligingly, falling into step with him. Is the Quirk acting up or something? Need me to talk to your friend? Something like that, Izuku mutters. And no, but thanks. We're not really talking right now. Shinso frowns at him. But, did you guys fight? Izuku shakes his head, curling his fingers tighter around the strap of his backpack. For a second, he swears it's the handle of the katana from the dream, hanging with a familiar weight from his hip. He lets go of the backpack strap as if he's been burned, pressing his lips together tightly. Just saw something I don't think I was supposed to. We're not on bad terms or anything, but he said he needs some space. Oh, Shinso tucks his hands into his pockets, head ducking a bit. That would SCK actually. I guess there's not really a way to hide anything from someone in your head, huh? Not really, Izuku sighs again. Still, though, he trails off with a shake of his head. I'm just not sure what to say, you know? Because it's not like he owes me any, explanations or anything, but do I just pretend it didn't happen? Shinso shrugs. I mean, from what I've heard about the guy, he doesn't seem like he'll get set off by you trying to talk about it. But if he doesn't, then leave it. You don't really know him, right? Izuku purses his lips. The thing is, he might not know Tanjiro in person or in any physical sense whatsoever, but he's been quite literally inseparable from the other boy for about 5 days at this point. So he feels like he really does know Tanjiro. It would be kind of hard not to get to know a person that's been living in the same head as you. That's fair, Shinso agrees. Izuku smacks a palm onto his forehead, feeling his cheeks darken. I said all of that out loud, didn't I? Oh. Izuku freezes, hands still on his face, and not because Tanjiro had spoken. He lowers his hand slowly, staring at the scar-muddled skin as if the limb has personally offended him. It only takes him a second to connect the dots. Shinso stops a couple steps ahead, turning when he notices Izuku isn't following. Midoriya? Izuku blinks, then proceeds to lift his hand to smack his face again. Hey, stop that, Tanjiro says. And then he raises his hand to touch his forehead. Izuku knows he does this because he can feel Tanjiro's touch on his own face, as if the boy was standing right in front of him. Shinso appears in front of him, latching onto his wrist. Dude, what the hell? It's not that big of a deal. Kami, what dash? Tanjiro smacks at his own wrist, as if he can transcend time to make Shinso let go. Actually, knowing Tanjiro, he could probably find a way. So, I think we've surpassed the empathy, Izuku says weakly. He pulls his wrist away from Shinso, mostly to keep Tanjiro from hitting his arm again. To Shinso, he mutters, "It changed again." What? The quirk? Oh my god. Izuku puts a hand at his ear as Shinso and Tanjiro speak at the same time. Okay, so he thought the earlier empathy could be a fluke, but with the quirk changing again? There's no way it would just glitch 2 times in a row with very different results. It must be part of the quirk. But what is it? Telepathy, empathy, whatever the hell this is. Some hellish combination of all 3? And is there a point to what it's doing to them? There's so many questions that Izuku cannot begin to fathom the answers to. Hey, Midoriya. Shinso snaps his fingers in front of Izuku's nose. Do you need to skip class? I can say you're sick, but if it changed again, I don't know how safe it actually is. Maybe you should tell Aizawa-sensei. Hey, are you listening? Izuku disentangles himself from the maelstrom of his and Tanjiro's thoughts. Yeah, it's not that big of a change. Just that we can feel it when each other touches something now, I guess? The quirk wired our nerves together. Izuku winces. Okay, so maybe that doesn't sound great. Shinso stares at him incredulously. How the F is that not a big change? I mean, we had empathy before? So it's just like physical empathy. Izuku starts to twist his fingers together in the way he absent-mindedly does, then quickly drops his hands. It's really not that different. Are you trying to convince Shinso, or us? Tanjiro asks dryly. Neither. Izuku blinks, then slaps a hand over his mouth, mumbling out a muffled, "Damn it. Sorry, Shinso, trying to carry 2 conversations at once is kinda hard." I'm sure, Shinso deadpants. Come on, Midoriya, you can't seriously think this isn't a problem. What about the hero training in a few hours? Or what if there's a villain attack? Won't he just feel everything that you do, Lord Bonebreaker? Izuku flushes a bit, but he feels his stomach bottom out. Shinso's right. He can't put Tanjiro through something like that, not with how unwieldy his quirk is. I have broken bones before, you know. Tanjiro points out. That, of course, doesn't make Izuku feel any better. He draws in a deep breath, fingers tracing the jagged scars on his arm. There really isn't a way out of this, is there? Okay, he says finally. I'll tell Aizawa-sensei at the end of the day. Shinso nods, something in his eyes dissipating. Good. He knocks into Izuku's shoulder gently, flashing a smirk at him. You better not get the sheet beat out of you in training then. Izuku huffs out a laugh, shoving away the oncoming dread. I'll try. The dream leaves Tanjiro's head a mess. He's not entirely sure why, really. He's no stranger to nightmares, has had no problem in the past shoving away the hellscape his brain presents him with at night. But if he's being honest, the nightmares have gotten worse after the fight with Enmu. Tanjiro doesn't really trust sleep anymore, not after the demon kept trapping him in it. He can never shake the feeling that something is going to happen while he's asleep, and he won't be awake to stop it. Still, though, he tries his best to sleep, because he is only human. And maybe he should have expected this, since he was caught in Izuku's dream. But he didn't think, he wasn't really planning on having that conversation with the other boy. He's barely talked about it to his friends in this time. He's not sure how that conversation will go, since Izuku doesn't believe in demons. He would never accuse Tanjiro of lying, of course, but he might not actually believe Tanjiro. And, well, Tanjiro doesn't really want to get into it with him. He doesn't want to fight with his friend, especially since they have nowhere to go but each other. Izuku is so sweet, though, not demanding any answers and just letting Tanjiro be while he collects his thoughts. He's barely even curious. He gathered enough from the dream, Tanjiro's sure, but he is worried. Tanjiro can feel his concern like a tangible thing, even if he doesn't push. Tanjiro can say easily that Izuku is probably the most sincerely kind person he's ever met, besides Nezuko. Tanjiro moves through the town that his Kasugai crow had directed them to, smiling a bit to himself as Zenitsu drags Inosuke away from various market displays. With all the people around, it makes Tanjiro wonder what it would be like to have Izuku here, instead of just in his head. Would he be as fascinated with this town from his past as Inosuke is? It's a little strange that, as well as Tanjiro knows him, he has no clue what Izuku looks like other than the scars on his hand and the freckles on his arms that he caught sight of when Tanjiro accidentally took over his body. Will that happen again, if they don't break whatever this is? It's then that Tanjiro feels a sting on his forehead, followed by Izuku continuing his conversation with Shinso. Tanjiro blinks. He doesn't really mean to say anything, but his confusion betrays him. Oh. Izuku has a flurry of thoughts, and by now Tanjiro can kind of keep up with them. His eyes widen at the conclusion Izuku draws, before the other boy swears wholeheartedly. The sting comes again, and Tanjiro flinches, thinking, "Hey, stop that," as he brushes his fingers across the now tender spot. Then someone grabs his wrist. Well, not his wrist, but he feels it all the same. A blurred "Kami what dash" flies through his head, and he smacks at it on reflex. "So, I think we've surpassed empathy," Izuku says, voice strained. What was that phrase Izuku had used? "No sheet, Sherlock?" To Izuku he bemoans, "Oh my god. This is not good." They can't have their nerves wired together, not with the fight Tanjiro has on the horizon. He glances around, quickly spotting his teammates. It's not even midday yet, so if Izuku is going to tell his sensei, they might have time to figure this out before nightfall. Or he could make an excuse, make the others wait until tomorrow or something. Demon fights get ugly fast, and he really doesn't want Izuku in the crossfire. This is fine. This is so fine. This is definitely not fine. When Izuku approaches the cafeteria at lunchtime that day, he beholds the sea of students filling the room with their voices and bodies and thinks nope. He's not even that hungry, honestly, so he has no regrets as he spins on his heel and heads in the opposite direction. Going off campus for lunch is a no-go in UA, but you don't have to be in the cafeteria. Maybe. Probably. Either way, Izuku slips outside. He finds a very nice tree and sits against its trunk, tipping his head back and just breathing. He tries not to think about the upcoming hero training or his confession to Aizawa-sensei, instead watching a leaf drift slowly towards the lawn. Eventually, his mind does spiral back to oncoming doom, and he can't help but think, what comes next? So he tells Aizawa-sensei, they find the guy, and what? The quirk is cancelled. He and Tanjiro are separated just like that. He'll lose Tanjiro just like that? Izuku can feel his throat constricting and lowers his gaze to the grass beneath him. Not lost, he has to remind himself. Not in that way. Just not here. But the ache in his chest, the cries of his siblings, the feeling of metal slicing through his neck. Izuku shudders and presses his hand to the base of his throat. Something in his chest tightens and tightens until he finally bursts out, "Tanjiro, you're not suicidal, are you?" Tanjiro follows Izuku's train of thought easily and winces. "No, I'm not. That was a different sort of situation." Izuku slumps a bit in relief, though he feels his heartbeat spike from where his fingers are still pressed against his throat. "Wait, you mean that actually happened?" Tanjiro hesitates, collecting his thoughts. He takes a deep breath, mentally or physically. Izuku's not sure, and states, "It was during a fight with a demon. He kept trapping me in dreams, and the only way to get out was..." Tanjiro's doubt towards Izuku's belief curdles in both of their lungs. He rushes on before Izuku can say anything. "Listen, I know it's hard to believe, but demons are real, at least in my time." That? He conjures up the image of the brown-skinned creature from the dream, eyes blood-red and fangs bared, clawed hands reaching towards the Tsuzumi that looks to be attached to his thigh. That's a demon. He'd kidnapped a little boy and was going to eat him and kill me, until I killed him. Flashes of memory pop up in Izuku's mind's eye. An abandoned mansion in the woods, a small girl clinging to him, Tanjiro, as they navigate the halls. The rooms and corridors shifting and spinning around them as the sounds of a Tsuzumi fill the air, and finally throwing open a door to reveal a boy staring at him with terrified eyes. The corpse of a woman, bloody and torn apart, the sharp pains from being tossed around with cracked ribs and a broken leg finally finding the opening thread and swinging with all his might. Tanjiro shakes off the memories. Izuku can feel him closing his eyes, tightening his grip on his katana until his knuckles turn white. "They killed my family, Izuku." He whispers, the ache in his voice raw and unguarded. The Demon King, Kibutsuji Musen, slaughtered my baby siblings for no other reason than because he could. He turned my sister into a demon, and she almost killed me before Jusan stepped in. Demons are very real, and they aren't human, not anymore. Izuku presses his hands over his mouth, nausea roiling in his stomach. He mirrors Tanjiro, squeezing his eyes shut as he lets out a shuddering breath. Not human anymore. Demons were like monsters out of a fairy tale. Monsters with power, a hunger for blood, being alive and human once but now past death. And doesn't Izuku know something about monsters? Memories of mottled skin and exposed brains, blood-curdling screams, and nothing but destruction fills his head, and he thinks, oh. Tanjiro, he chokes out, feeling tears pool in his eyes. I'm so sorry. It has nothing to do with you, Tanjiro reminds him gently. You're hundreds of years in the future. Honestly, the fact that you have no idea what demons are is comforting. That means we demon slayers succeeded, right? I guess. Izuku pulls his hands away from his mouth and leans his head back, taking in the blue of the sky. If that's really true, then his world is safe from the creatures that used to stalk the earth because of warriors that existed hundreds of years ago, unseen and unpraised for their efforts. A lot of good people have died for our cause, Tanjiro says softly. A man's face, bloody and beaten but smiling even as his breath halts, flits by. It's nice to know that their sacrifices weren't in vain in the end. Izuku gives a small shake of his head. Demon slayers deserve better. They deserve to be remembered like the heroes of past ages, because that's what they are. But they faded from memory and from history, and they were forgotten. That's probably because we aren't acknowledged by the authorities, Tanjiro says. Like I said, most people even these days don't believe in demons, so we kind of go by unnoticed. There's a few legends, I guess, some rumors about what we do, but the world is changing, you know? Demons have become folklore, and us slayers along with them. That's not right, Izuku murmurs. You guys are protecting humanity. You're keeping those monsters at bay. You deserve some sort of recognition. Tanjiro shrugs, and the phantom feeling of cloth brushing against his shoulder makes Izuku shiver. I mean, not much we can do, right? And maybe in the old days people would join the Demon Slayer Corps for recognition, but it's not like that anymore. Kind of the opposite, really. Izuku stands, bracing a hand against the tree. I'll do something about that, he vows. There has to be stuff I can find. Old records, photographs, something to show that you guys were here. Tanjiro is silent for a moment, his thoughts stuttering. Izuku can feel his speechlessness, the warmth sparking in his chest. Would do that? Izuku grins, knowing Tanjiro can feel it. Of course. Oh no, Tanjiro sniffles. I'm gonna make us both cry if I start. Quick, say something mean. Izuku's grin widens. No way. It's a good thing Izuku's known as a crybaby. He doesn't have to pull out the "I'm crying because my brain roomie is crying" card. Not that anyone would believe him. But even as his eyes spill over, empathy tears tracing their way down his face, they don't dampen his smile one bit. When Aizawa-sensei announces what they'll be doing for hero training, Izuku nearly wilts in relief. Rescue training. They've done stuff like this before, where the teachers arrange various disasters and send them in to rescue civilians. It's not like this kind of exercise is easier per se, but at least all he has to fight is perilous terrain. Shinso raises an eyebrow at him in a lucky sort of way. Izuku sticks his tongue out at him. They suit up, and Aizawa-sensei directs them towards ground beta. This area has been hit with an explosive, he drawls, hands shoved in his pockets. Many buildings are unstable. Find the civilians that need saving, and move past the ones that can't be saved. Deliver the civilians to the designated medical area. Points will be awarded based on how many people you rescue and how you handle said rescue. Understood? Izuku peers at the shells of buildings set up, debris scattered all over and fires actively burning. He shudders a bit at Aizawa-sensei's warning. He knows his sensei is just trying to prepare them for the real world, but it seems a bit harsh. He shares an uncertain look with Uraraka. Well, your sensei's right, Tanjiro murmurs. People get killed, and you can't afford to get distracted. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Izuku tells him dryly. They're put into 5 teams of 4, and Aizawa-sensei positions them at different points around the ground. Even from where he's standing, just outside the west side of the ground, Izuku can taste ash in the air. Aizawa-sensei's voice crackles in the comms a few seconds later, "Go!" His team, Todoroki, Kirishima, and Ajuru, don't waste time. Izuku glances around, pulling his mask into place to try to filter out the smoke. He motions for them to spread out a bit as he makes his way closer to a tremulous-looking building. A little ways behind him, Ajuru calls, "Hello? Can anyone hear me? We're heroes." Kirishima tacks on helpfully. They all pause, listening to the sound of their own breathing and the crackling of flames until a distant wail floats through the air. Izuku locks eyes with Todoroki, and they take off. "People aren't actually hurt, are they?" Tanjiro asks, his voice soft like he's trying not to distract Izuku. "No," Izuku assures him as he picks his way over a pile of broken, shifting concrete. "It's just an exercise. They usually nab some older hero students or kids from other departments to play civilians." Tanjiro starts to say something else, but his thoughts halt suddenly, his attention snapping to something else in his time as one of his friends starts talking to him. Izuku lets him go, knowing he has to focus on the task at hand. He pretends the unease rising in Tanjiro's chest isn't unsettling. Todoroki calls them over to the other side of the concrete pile, where Izuku spots an older boy with a large piece of concrete over his arm. His other arm is tucked casually behind his head, raised eyebrows conveying about time. "My arm is stuck," he says, twisting his face and voice into believable terror, even though his eyes are bored. Izuku wonders if that has something to do with his quirk. Ajuru makes quick work of lifting the concrete with his tail, and Todoroki freezes it to stabilize it. Ajuru flashes a reassuring grin as he scoops up the guy, saying, "Don't worry. You'll be safe soon." He bounds off towards the medical area. Izuku picks his way back over the pile of debris, squinting up at the ash-filled sky. He blinks, and the sky is blue, his fingers digging into straps over his shoulders as the stinking scent of malice fills his nose. The earth under his feet shifts, but it's not earth, it's bits of concrete and rebar, and he's about to fall on his face. Kirishima grabs his shoulder, steadying Izuku before he can make a bigger fool of himself. "Careful, man." "Sorry," Izuku breathes. His hand rises to his nose, but he can't smell the dark scent anymore. He shakes his head hard. "Let's keep going." They find a girl around their age standing in the street and droning on in a monotone about how her cat is still inside her smoking house. She proceeds to resist every effort made to remove her from the dangerous area. Izuku huffs quietly and volunteers to find the cat while Todoroki and Kirishima escort her away, since he's the only one with a mask. Todoroki shakes his head. "Not by yourself. Kirishima can take her. I'll stay in case the building becomes more unstable." Izuku nods, shifting his mask more tightly against his face. Kirishima sends them an enthusiastic thumbs up and gently drags the girl off. She rolls her eyes egregiously, but lets him. Izuku powers up one for all to 20% and bounces inside. The smoke is thick, trapped in between the walls, and Izuku coughs a bit. He's not sure where the fire is located, so he moves carefully, avoiding a wall that has collapsed inward. The house isn't too large, thankfully, and he kicks through a ruined door to find a burnt bedroom. On the scorched futon sits a shoddily made cardboard cat, with cat written across its face in black Sharpie in case it wasn't clear. Izuku lets out a snort and scoops up the cat. Either this was placed here later, or his teachers took great care not to burn the cat. He's betting on the second one, since it's well known that Aizawa-sensei is a cat lover. "Hey, Izuku." Tanjiro's voice is tight, carefully controlled, and the sound of it makes Izuku snap to attention. "Listen, I've got to Zenitsu located the demon we've been sent to kill. We're going after it now, since it's been living in a cave system underneath this town, and, well, I don't want to miss this opportunity. But I thought you would like a warning, just so you know what's going on. So you don't freak out," is probably what he really means. Izuku can read between the lines. Izuku realizes he's been gripping the cardboard cat too hard, and peels his fingers away from the small dents that have formed in its belly. He's not sure what to say to that. Good luck? Have fun? After a second, he decides on be safe. I'll try, Tanjiro promises, but there's a sharp, heavy feeling weighing down both of them. Izuku doesn't like the sound of that. Tanjiro's voice becomes forcibly lighter as he continues. Hopefully you can finish up your exercise without me distracting you, since I'll be, occupied. Yeah, Izuku swallows against the taste of ash on his tongue. The house groans loudly around him, and he's jerked back into the present. Oh yeah, potentially dangerous situation here. In front of him, a beam crashes to the floor, sending sparks scattering into the air. Izuku skitters a bit to the side, eyes flicking up to assess the stability of the ceiling. Cracks span across the length of it, growing ever wider, and Izuku concludes not good. He activates one for all, green sparks joining the flickering orange ones, and propels himself forward. He braces a shoulder and tucks the cat to his chest. He crashes easily through the back wall of the bedroom and skids to a stop outside, coughing through the dust and lingering smoke. He glances behind him just in time to see the rest of the house fall, walls crashing inward and sending plumes of ash into the sky. That was close. Todoroki runs up to him, Ajuru following closely behind. He must have returned while Izuku was getting the cat. I'm glad you got out, Todoroki says, gaze moving from Izuku to the remains of the house behind him. There's a smear of soot on his face, and Ajuru's white GI is similarly stained. Izuku doesn't want to know what he looks like right now. I'm not sure I could have saved that. Did you get the cat? Izuku holds up the cardboard cat triumphantly, unable to keep himself from grinning. Ajuru lets out a surprised laugh and starts to say something, but his voice is overtaken by Kirishima's calls over the comms. Hey, I found someone on my way back. I'm gonna need at least one of you guys. Can't lift the wall and get the kid by myself. Trying to banish the dark feeling tightening his lungs, Tanjiro will be fighting for his life and he can't do anything. Izuku tucks the cat into his belt and follows Kirishima's directions to his location. It doesn't take long. Soon, he spots a flash of bright red hair that has to be his classmate. He weaves around various pieces of shrapnel, watching with envy as Ajuru casually veers at awkward angles in front of him, the weight of his tail moving to counterbalance every movement. See, that is definitely one of the pluses to having a tail. If Izuku had to choose a mutation, it would probably be that or something slams into his back, sending rivulets of pain across his shoulder blades. He jitters a bit, his feet halting as he reaches towards his back unconsciously. However, his fingers brush nothing but the fabric of his costume. The first thought he can muster that makes sense is, Tanjiro? Sorry, Tanjiro wheezes. Lots of arms. Too many arms. Excuse me? For a second, Izuku thinks of Shigaraki, except the villain is covered with hands, not arms. Demon is all Tanjiro offers before his focus switches away again. Izuku winces. Whatever he had expected when Tanjiro told him about the fight, it wasn't entirely this. Tanjiro's mind is flitting feverishly back and forth, dancing around in the way his body must be. Izuku can feel his breaths, steady and deliberate, sending strength pinging through his body. There's a jolt that runs from his palms up his arms, and Izuku imagines Tanjiro's katana striking home against something. Disorienting, to say the least, to have the feeling of fighting, the ache of clenching his fists too tight, and the thrill of adrenaline racing through his veins when he's just standing immobile with no threat in sight. He wishes he could be there, to help his friend with an enemy that won't hesitate to kill him. Izuku gives his head a hard shake. Tanjiro isn't alone, he has his friends fighting with him. And the other boy is more than capable. Izuku's just distracting him with senseless thoughts that'll cloud the other's judgment. So he sends out a quick apology and forces himself to stop hounding his brain Rumi. He starts forward, seeing that Todoroki and Ajuru have already reached Kirishima. He's definitely not going to get the best marks on this exercise. His teammates are the ones who've been doing all the work. Still, he pushes down the lingering worry for Tanjiro. Izuku can't do anything, and heads over. When he gets there, Kirishima is already letting a dilapidated wall fall as Ajuru stands off to one side with a little boy who's patting the fluff of his tail. Izuku's honestly not sure where his teachers got the child from, and maybe he doesn't want to know. I'm supposed to be scared, the little boy tells Ajiru in a conspiratorial not whisper. A smile tugs at Ajiru's lips, though it freezes for a second when he glances over at Izuku. You're doing a good job. The boy nods confidently and returns to his tail-petting ministrations. Kirishima offers Izuku a shark-toothed grin as he dusts himself off, skin reverting back to normal. Izuku startled a bit when Todoroki speaks from beside him. Where did you go, Midoriya? Izuku turns toward him with a guilty blink. Sorry, I just got distracted, that's all. There's a small furrow between Todoroki's brows, and his mismatched eyes watch Izuku carefully. Izuku forces himself not to fidget or look generally suspicious. For some reason, most people assume that Izuku's a bad liar. He's actually quite proficient at lying, except no one seems to catch on to that fact. But Todoroki always gets this look when he usually rightly suspects Izuku of dishonestly. He has that look now. Thankfully, Izuku is saved from Todoroki's "I see everything" expression by Kirishima clapping him on the shoulder. Izuku winces a bit, back still sore from whatever had whacked Tanjiro, or maybe Tanjiro had whacked into something. Happens to the best of us. You want to take him? Izuku looks over at the kid, still content with Ajiru's tail. He rolls his shoulders, feeling the remnants of pain sparking there and thinks it could happen again. If Tanjiro gets hit again, Izuku doesn't fully trust himself not to drop the little boy or something. In this exercise, Izuku is an unsteady variable and could just F everything up and maybe actually hurt someone in the process. So he shakes his head. No, Todoroki should take him. I was the one who got distracted. He should get the points. Todoroki frowns at him, and Izuku looks innocently back. Hey, it's just an added bonus that it'll keep Todoroki from giving him the look until Izuku caves. Todoroki really does deserve the points more than him, since his only successful rescue was of a cardboard cat. Todoroki nods, but his narrowed gaze warns Izuku he's not letting go of the distraction moment. Izuku mentally adds that conversation to his impending demise list, which was already full with the Aizawa-sensei confrontation. Todoroki is just starting away with the boy when Izuku feels his stomach bottom out. Tanjiro swears viciously. Izuku only has time to get out the first syllable of Tanjiro's name before something tears at his chest and pain explodes across his body. A small, choked sound rips out of his throat and he stumbles, hand coming up to clutch at the fabric of his costume. He knows where it's coming from. He knows, utterly, viscerally, what happened. Tanjiro. There's a hand on his arm, gripping hard, but Izuku's vision is swimming and he doesn't know if it's on his end or Tanjiro's. The other boy doesn't answer, really, but Izuku can still feel him and that's more than enough, it has to be. He's alive, even if he's wounded. He's alive, but he might not stay that way. Izuku's head clears enough for him to realize that the hand is, in fact, on his side. In one smooth movement, Kirishima shifts his hold on Izuku's arm to sling it across his shoulders. His crimson eyes are wide and worried and he's asking, Midoriya? Can you hear me? Midoriya. On his other side, Ajiru is speaking rapidly over the comms, tail twitching anxiously as he watches them. Izuku lifts his head and forces in a deep, steadying breath. Focus. Fine. I'm fine. Yeah, that's bullshit, Kirishima cuts in aptly. Izuku grimaces. I mean, I wasn't going to say anything until later, but it's really unlike you to get distracted during hero training. Then you almost collapse on us out of nowhere. That is not fine. What's wrong? Without thinking, Izuku presses a palm against his chest, against the gashes that should be there but aren't. He shakes his head, pausing as Tanjiro lands on a strategy and moves. He shakes his head again, attempting to pull away from Kirishima. It's nothing really, Oh no. Todoroki is back with the look, even though the kid is still in his arms. He puts the boy down gently, however, and reaches over to grab Izuku's hand which is still against his chest. You're injured. And no, Izuku tries, forcing himself to straighten up, snatching his hand out of Todoroki's grip. Why would I be injured? Aizawa-sensei's on his way. Ajiru chimes in, hand dropping from his comm, his eyes skate over Izuku, face pinched. He said to. Izuku's hearing fuzzes out, replaced by endless, sharp ringing. His head starts to ache even as the relief of victory courses through Tanjiro. Black spots float in front of his eyes, too stubborn to be blinked away. It's okay, Tanjiro pants. I'm okay, Izuku, we got him. Based on the various bits of pain dancing in Izuku's bloodstream, he calls bullshit. He supposes he can understand Kirishima. A gentle hand brushes his shoulder and he startles, except that's on Tanjiro's end. The startle helps chip away at the painful fog and Izuku blinks to find that he's now on the ground. Fun. He's leaning against Todoroki's side, the coolness of his right soothing his red-hot chest. With stumbling hands, he pushes himself away, trying to balance into his own fully supported sitting position. It works for about 2 seconds before he crashes against Todoroki again. So, he starts, the word breathy and as unstable as his limbs. Our grades might go to shit on this one. Kirishima snorts from his crouched position in front of him. Ajuru reaches out to smack the redhead from Izuku's other side. Sorry, Kirishima says, hands coming up in defense. His expression sobers when he looks back to Izuku. I don't think we're worrying about our grades right now, bro. Izuku hums non-committally. He lets his vision go unfocused for a second as he calls out to Tanjiro. How bad? Tanjiro groans a bit before biting out, well, I'll live. Probably. Izuku jarks, sending more spinning pain towards his head. Probably. What? Ajuru asks, brow furrowing. I'm joking, Tanjiro says dryly. And you just said that out loud. I did. You just... His voice fluctuates, going hoarse and breathy. Did it again. Izuku mumbles, then covers his mouth with a hand. His heart clenches, concern spiking at the pain leaking into his friend's voice. He makes a conscious effort this time to mentally transcend, save your strength. Don't worry about talking. Seems I was doing the same talking thing, Tanjiro says anyway. Based on the looks I'm getting at least. Exhaustion starts trickling in as the adrenaline abandons them both, weighing down bones and eyelids. Izuku blinks heavily, suddenly very comfortable against Todoroki's side even with the alarm bells his brain is ringing. He sighs, eyes falling to half-lidded. Blood loss? Yup, Tanjiro murmurs. There's darkness encroaching at the edges of Izuku's vision, twilight creeping over his mind. He's not sure he could move, even if he wanted to. He manages to glimpse the black hair and white capture weapon of Aizawa-sensei as Tanjiro continues. See you on the other side? Izuku barely lets out an affirmative hum before the black floods over him, and he's gone. Tanjiro's stomach sinks when Zenitsu tells him he's located the demon. In a cave system spanning out under the village, which sits atop a plateau bordered by steep cliffs ending in roaring ocean, with only one path in and out of the town. He can hear Izuku with his teammates as they talk about the unstable building, can feel him slipping on a cool metal mask as determination sings in his blood. What Izuku is doing is important to him, and Tanjiro could ruin that, not to mention that getting into a fight is the last thing he wants to do while he's connected with Izuku. He takes a deep breath as Zenitsu leads him to the entrance of the caves they'd found that Inosuke's currently guarding. He knows he can't stop this. He doesn't really want to, honestly, because this is a golden opportunity to deal with the demon while it's daytime. But he wishes that he could just pull away from Izuku while he fights. Sure, Izuku's been in fights before, but not with a demon. Not with something so inhuman and intelligent and driven mad with bloodlust. And Tanjiro doesn't want to have to expose him to that. Ever? You guys are protecting humanity. You're keeping those monsters at bay. Tanjiro lets out a slow breath, setting his jaw as they turn a corner. Hey, Izuku. Izuku focuses on him immediately. Tanjiro winces. That had probably sounded more ominous than he wanted it to. Still, he continues. Listen, I've got to located the demon we've been sent to kill. We're going after it now, since it's been living in a cave system underneath this town, and, well, I don't want to miss this opportunity. But I thought you would like a warning, just... He fumbles a bit, catching a glimpse of Inosuke just outside the village beside a dark opening in the cliffside. So you know what's going on. Oh, is all Izuku says. Tanjiro fights back another wince, sensing Izuku struggling with his own words. Finally, he tells Tanjiro softly, be safe. A strange warmth, heavy but feather-light at the same time, lodges in Tanjiro's chest. "I'll try," he murmurs, knowing exactly how much of a gamble it is to go head-to-head with a demon who's had his pick of humans for weeks. He tries to muster up some enthusiasm. "Hopefully you can finish up your exercise without me distracting you, since I'll be, occupied. Good luck." Izuku agrees quietly, before returning to his animal rescue. Izuku waves them over with a jagged blade, excitement radiating off of him. After all the days spent traveling, he's ready for a good fight. Tanjiro wishes he could feel the same. Who's ready to delve into a dark but hole and behead a shitty demon? Zenitsu lets out a small whimpering sound. Tanjiro sighs, wrapping his hand around the familiar grip of his katana. He tries to push Izuku away as much as possible as he says, "Let's get this over with." With Zenitsu's hearing and Tanjiro's own sense of smell, weaving through the connecting caves and passageways to find which one the demon is in takes practically no time at all. They all pause at the gaping maw of the cavern that greets them. Small holes are punched through the ceiling, letting in tiny trickles of sunlight. Giant stalactites protrude downward, mirrored by slick-looking stalagmites rising from the cavern floor, and a stone pillar connects ceiling and floor in the middle of the room. Tanjiro eyes the cracks around on the ceiling warily. They should be quick about this. The cavern doesn't look all that stable. Tanjiro glances once at his friends, drawing his blade. They step into the cavern as one. A croaky voice says. Tanjiro snaps his gaze up, searching among the blackness and stone above them. "Blood in my cave, oh yes, blood and flesh. I have smelled them coming." Tanjiro sends a quick signal to the other two and they spread out, forming a loose triangle on the cavern floor. He sweeps his eyes across the stone ceiling, letting his nose guide him, and he spots a lanky demon hanging off of a stalactite ushered into a small crevice in the wall, with 4 arms. It stares back at him, the shadows making its eyes glow eerily. It smiles, the white of its teeth flashing. "Let's have some fun then, It drops to the floor, its peculiarly elongated limbs dragging in a way that makes the back of Tanjiro's neck tingle. He slides into a fighting stance, feet braced, and exhales slowly. Total concentration breathing. The demon's eyes flick between them, the fingers on its upper left hand ticking upwards slowly, 1, 2, 3. Shivers shoot down Tanjiro's spine. It could be counting them, but he has a feeling it's something more. Izuku roars from Tanjiro's right and, before Tanjiro can stop him, he charges. The demon lets out a bone-chilling giggle, and then something explodes from its torso. Tanjiro is blasted backwards, barely having time to blink before he collides with the cavern wall. He falls to the floor, coughing as he tries to take a deep breath. Through wavery vision he sees that a myriad of arms are now extending from the demon's sides, chest, stomach and back, adding to its original 4. Izuku swipes off a hand that's reaching for him, but it grows back almost immediately. "Tanjiro?" Izuku demands suddenly. Tanjiro winces. He would have felt that impact. Tanjiro lets out a wheezing breath, pushing himself back onto his feet. Lots of arms. Too many arms. Great. Could he explain any worse? "Excuse me?" Tanjiro pulls in a breath, steadying himself as it hisses through his teeth. "Demon," is all he says as he returns to total concentration breathing, bracing his katana in front of him. He pauses for an infinitesimal second as arms reach toward him before murmuring, "Third form." He launches himself forward without having to think, muscle memory imprinted in every limb. Flowing dance. He slips around reaching hands, blades slicing faster and faster through skin and tendon and bone as he fights his way to the demon itself. Somewhere in the room, Izuku cackles and proclaims grisly death to the demon. Tanjiro lets out a final exhale as the demon's torso finally comes into view. He tightens his grip, raises, swings towards its ribs. An arm sprouts from the demon's hip, catching the blade. He slices through the hand instead of the ribs, the force of the katana diverted. Tanjiro sets his jaw in frustration, dodging to the right as another hand tries to swipe him away, then another from the left. There's a harsh tug on his back and he's pulled out of the way of yet another arm he hadn't noticed coming at him from the demon's back. He glances over to meet Sakura Pink Eyes and huffs out a quiet thanks. Nezuko nods before setting off determinedly, shrinking and growing intermittently to avoid the clawing hands reaching for her. Next to him, Zenitsu lets out a tiny whoop as his golden blade hits home, slitting an arm vertically up to the elbow. Blood sprays, and the demon screams, though it sounds more from rage than pain. Izuku catapults himself onto the demon's back when it's distracted, locking his limbs around a few of the demons. Tanjiro takes the opening, oxygen filling his lungs as he breathes deeply, dropping into a crouch as another hand claws at him. Seventh form. Drop ripple move. He darts forward, katana clutched tightly, the blade reflecting the low light of the cavern. The demon growls, stumbling around as it tries to shake off Izuku and Tanjiro moves. He aims for the demon's throat, feeling the tip of the sword pierce skin and the stink of corrupted iron filling his nose. The demon flings Izuku off, sending him careening into Zenitsu, who lets out a startled yelp. With a triumphant shriek, it ducks the rest of Tanjiro's move and lunges toward him with blinding speed. At the same time, two titanic, viciously clawed arms burst from his chest and back. The back one shoots out and demolishes the pillar in the center of the cavern with the resounding crash. That was the support pillar. Tanjiro recognizes distantly, a barrage of swears SNG through his head. He's too focused on that to see the one from his chest as it dives directly for him, talons outstretched. Tanjiro barely has time to register Zenitsu's shouted warning before the hand rakes across his chest. Tanjiro feels it tear through his uniform, through skin and muscle and scrape bone. Agony explodes in his bloodstream, clouding his head as his knees buckle. Izuku screams his name, his voice echoing strangely in Tanjiro's head. On your feet, he tells himself, forcing himself to push the pain and rising guilt. Izuku can feel everything's away. On instinct, he raises his katana and barely catches another strike aimed for his chest. The scent of his own blood clogs his mind and his hands shake as he tries to keep the demon off him. He's fallen back on desperate impulses, sparks flying into the air as the demon's claws scrape across his blade. If he can dodge at just the right moment, duck under the arm, the demon lurches backwards suddenly, and Tanjiro blinks to see the arm fly across the room, warm blood splattering across his face. Nezuko's leg is still outstretched from the kick, her pupils contracted and face molded in anger. Izuku's jagged blades rip through the arm on its back before he leaps, slamming his swords down through its shoulders. A sound like thunder echoes through the room and Zenitsu appears, head bowed low, shooting forward way too fast for Tanjiro's eyes to keep up with. He and Izuku strike for the throat at the same time, and the sound of their blades clanging together mixes with the thump of the demon's head hitting the floor. Zenitsu's head jerks up and he shrieks out, "What the no?" as the demon's limp body falls towards him, darting out of the way. Tanjiro lets out a tired huff of a laugh. He feels himself swaying dangerously, knees going weak, but Nezuko grabs his arm and helps guide him to the floor. His katana clatters out of his grip, and he can't bring himself to reach for it. "It's okay," Tanjiro tells Izuku breathily. "I'm okay, Izuku, we got him." Nezuko's hand lands on his shoulder, her touch gentle, and Tanjiro looks up at her. Although her hands are soft, her eyes are serious, and she points to the cavern ceiling. Cracks spread dangerously out from the spot of the now missing support pillar. Tanjiro feels his eyes go wide as he looks back to Nezuko. She nods, and then her form grows larger. Tanjiro thinks he might see a hint of a smile behind her bamboo muzzle, and then she scoops him up. The movement, unfortunately, sends pain shivering down every limb, and the ringing in his ears takes over. When he manages to fight the darkness away, he sees they're out of the cavern. Sun rays scatter across stone down the corridor and dust motes float in the air as Nezuko carries him toward the exit. He strains his neck a little to see that Zenitsu is carrying his katana for him, which he's admittedly thankful for. The sight of Izuku's jagged blades is enough to horrify even an apprentice bladesmith, and Tanjiro didn't want his friend to improve his. "How bad?" Izuku asks softly. Tanjiro lets his head fall back against Nezuko's shoulder, letting a small groan escape his lips. "Well, I'll live." Probably. Not funny, Tanjiro, Zenitsu mumbles. This strikes Tanjiro as a kind of strange thing to say out of the blue, but Zenitsu is kind of a strange guy. Probably. Izuku demands, and oh, that's why his words have a strange echoey quality. His worry wraps around Tanjiro, encompassing him, and he can't help but smile a bit. When this boy loves, he loves. I'm joking, Tanjiro says dryly. And you just said that out loud. Pretty sure he meant to, dipshit, Izuku tells him, though it's his own version of gentle. He peers over at Tanjiro, green eyes now visible with his mask propped up on his head. You hit your head or something? Tanjiro gives a quick shake of his head as Izuku says, I did. The shake admittedly hurts. Probably just from that toss, though, or maybe the blood loss. He didn't actually get hit in the head. You just... He feels his voice break a little, becoming more of a croak as he finishes. His voice? Did it again. He's talking out loud, isn't he? That's why his friends had been talking to him. They were responding. Izuku mutters, which makes Tanjiro smile again. He agrees though. He feels his friend physically cover his mouth with a hand as he thinks, save your strength. Don't worry about talking. Seems I was doing the same talking thing, Tanjiro says anyway, making sure his own mouth is closed. Based on the looks I'm getting at least. Nezuko relinquishes her hold on him as they come to the exit. Izuku helps slip the box off his back so that Nezuko can crawl inside, but not before she presses her forehead against his in a quick gesture of affection. Izuku slings the box onto his own back, which makes Zenitsu let out an unholy shriek, then puts an arm under his shoulder to help him along. You better not fucking fall on me, Manchipro, 'cause I ain't gonna carry you like a baby, he mumbles, though he snaps his green eyes away almost immediately, seemingly embarrassed. Izuku would, if he had to, Tanjiro thinks affectionately, but bobs his head in assent. The sun bathes Tanjiro in its light as they finally step out of the underground passageways, and he takes a deep breath, thankful to get away from the smell of ancient dust and demons. Zenitsu pushes him down to sit on the grass, tugging at Tanjiro's now shredded and blood-soaked uniform. We should put some pressure on this. Right, Tanjiro? Tanjiro barely manages a nod, half of Zenitsu's words lost to the fog in his mind. The adrenaline is fully gone now, and he can feel its absence weighing down his bones. Blood loss? Izuku asks, sounding woozy himself. The pang of guilt is muted, however, as Tanjiro feels his consciousness start to sink. Yup, he murmurs back. He can hear the ocean, he realizes, as its waves slap against the walls of the cliffs. He exhales slowly, tipping his head back and letting the clear sky above him become an endless array of effervescent blue. See you on the other side? He hears Izuku's soft hum of affirmation. As the black encroaches his vision, Tanjiro sends out a silent prayer to whoever's listening that they actually will. Izuku opens his eyes to a white ceiling and soft bed sheets. The familiar scent of antiseptics greets him, and he realizes that he's in the infirmary. A quick wiggle of his limbs confirms that none of them are in a cast, and nothing feels wrong besides some soreness in his chest, so why? Izuku sits bolt upright, scarred hand flying to press on mentioned sore chest. The rescue exercise. The demon. The wound. Tanjiro, he murmurs, his friend's name escaping his mouth involuntarily. He can feel him, he can still feel him. Tanjiro is there, just not awake. But he's alive. Izuku feels a laugh burbling in his throat from sheer relief, and he lets his eyes slip closed again. Who's Tanjiro? Izuku startles, the thin hospital blanket twisting around his legs as he jolts nearly out of his skin. He turns his wide gaze to meet tired black eyes and winces horribly. How the hell had he not noticed? His sensei sitting right there? He says intelligently. No one, I mean, I didn't say anything. God, where are his lying skills when he FING needs them? Aizawa-sensei is suitably not impressed. His stupidly soul-searching gaze never waves from Izuku once as he contemplates his strategy. He sighs and says, we'll get back to that. First, I need you to tell me what happened out there. Out there? Izuku squeaks, effacing his hands into the mattress. Get it together, Izuku. Oh, Nothing really, just tired. Aizawa-sensei blinks slowly, and Izuku has the feeling he's just chosen the worst dialogue choice. You collapsed and then passed out because you were just tired. Izuku lifts one shoulder in a half-hearted attempt at being casual. Huh, weird, right? Shit, he's totally going to find out. He's going to find out and give Izuku his, I'm not mad, just disappointed, face because Izuku F'd up again and maybe at this point he should just expel himself before. Midoriya, Aizawa-sensei cuts through Izuku's rapidly spiraling thoughts. He waits until Izuku hesitantly meets his eyes before saying in a minusculely gentler tone, Shinso already told me. Izuku doesn't think his diaphragm is working correctly. He feels like someone just planted their fist into his lungs. Note to self, Shinso will sell your soul to the devil for a tortilla chip. He lets out an embarrassing little gasping breath as he asks, logical ruse? I wanted to know if you would tell me on your own. Aizawa-sensei confirms, because of course. But it appears that you wouldn't. Why? Because he's training to be a hero, for FS sake. I can handle it. I'm not saying you can't, Aizawa-sensei answers. I'm asking why you, a 15-year-old first year, wouldn't tell his teacher when he got hit by a quirk that could potentially put him and his classmates in danger. Izuku releases the hospital blanket, feeling indignation rising. Tanjiro isn't dangerous, he snaps. It's not his fault that this happened. Aizawa-sensei leans back in his chair, expression appraising. Then we'll return to, who's Tanjiro? He's the, Izuku trails off, blinking at his sensei. Didn't Shinso tell you? He can't really hide the venom in his tone, and Aizawa-sensei shakes his head. Don't blame Shinso, he did the right thing. I know you would have done the same thing if you were in his position. Izuku looks away at that. His sensei may be right, but that would be different. It would be his friend that was hit, not Izuku. And no, Aizawa-sensei continues. He told me you were hit by some sort of telepathy-empathy quirk, and that was all. I think I can fairly assume Tanjiro is the one you're connected to? Yes, Izuku mutters miserably. What does he have to do with what happened today? Izuku bites his lip, hand floating towards his chest again as he reaches to feel Tanjiro's consciousness. It's kind of hard to explain. I have time, Aizawa-sensei. Deadpants. Izuku runs a hand through his hair, avoiding Aizawa-sensei's gaze. Basics for now, maybe, and he'll elaborate later. Shinso told you about the telepathy and an empathy thing, so, we can feel each other's pain? And Tanjiro had to, he was fighting today and got injured, so... Aizawa-sensei crosses his arms over his chest. A few beats of silence pass as he evaluates Izuku's answer, then finally, is he a hero then? Izuku cringes, fingers going to pick at the hem of the hospital blanket. No. He's my age, actually, and he's not from around here. Aizawa-sensei gives him a look that means, I know you're not telling me everything, but I'll let it slide for now. Izuku likes to think he's pretty fluent in Aizawa speak by now. All right, problem child, he sighs. Explain to me how you got hit in the first place. Izuku quickly rattled off the story, including the description of the horned man. Aizawa-sensei nods and takes out his phone, fingers flying. I've let Tsukachi know to keep an eye out. We'll find him. He sighs and gets to his feet, hands shoved in his pockets in that familiar slouchy way. All right, problem child. We'll discuss this again later. You're free to go. Izuku bobs his head, swinging his legs out from the bed. When his feet touch the ground, the world blinks out in an almost familiar way by now. Instead of the infirmary, he sees a clear blue sky above him and can smell salt on the air. Then his vision snaps back into place, and he sees Aizawa-sensei shuffling out once more. Izuku presses his lips tightly together, pressing his fingers against his temple. He'd ask, what the F dash? But honestly he can't really question things anymore. Izuku? Tanjiro's voice is tired and a little slurred, but there. Tanjiro. Izuku feels a smile break through his earlier expression. How are you feeling? Like a demon just used me for his chew toy. Tanjiro stares dryly. But what else is new? Izuku snickers even as he winces. Yup, I can attest to that also. Guilt swarms up Tanjiro's throat at that, and Izuku loses his smile. I'm so sorry, Izuku. I wish that hadn't. Nope, Izuku cuts through. Not happening. It's not exactly like you wanted to get injured. No, but it's not your fault. You were literally just doing your job, Izuku tells him firmly. You wouldn't be angry at me if I had to fight a villain, right? Tanjiro sighs, something in the exhalation fond. Of course not. Exactly, Izuku declares triumphantly. So there's nothing to apologize for. That I guess, Tanjiro grumbles, before his voice softens. Thanks. It's called logic, Izuku snarks, the grin returning to his face. Maybe you should try it sometime. Oh my god. You did not just say that. Can I remind you? Tanjiro pitches his voice up higher. Just got distracted. Or maybe, my spawn point must have glitched? I do not sound like that. Izuku squawks. And you don't even know what that means. I know enough to tell that it was something far from logical. Clearly our definitions of logic differ. Izuku mutters. And then Tanjiro laughs, which makes Izuku laugh, and they both lose it in an empty UA hallway with the head-rushing feeling of relief and being okay and together, until Tanjiro complains that he can't breathe. Izuku has that instantaneous, all-consuming second of realizing how much he's going to look back and miss this moment. I'm going to miss you, Izuku blurts out without entirely meaning to as they catch their breath. You know, when this is all over. Something softens in Tanjiro's chest, a feeling of nostalgia but not quite filling his lungs. Yeah, I'm sure you'll miss having to feel everything I do, he teases gently. But, I'll miss you too. I mean, who else is going to question my taste in music? Or judge me for liking cardboard? Izuku huffs out an amused breath, trying to banish the bittersweet feeling that he refuses to confront until it's really over. Anyone, I'm sure, Tanjiro tells him dryly. I already told you, liking cardboard is a universal moment of growth. Only you don't understand because of this stupid time-hopping quirk. Sure, Tanjiro says. Definitely not because you're weird. Izuku feigns an expression of hurt, before he remembers Tanjiro can't actually see him. Well, I love you too, Tanjiro. Warmth spreads from his head to his toes, tingling in the tips of his fingers. Tanjiro lets out a spluttering sound, and Izuku can feel the smile stretching across his lips. What the hell am I supposed to say to that? Izuku taps his chin, his current grin probably more than qualifying as sheet-eating. How about, you're amazing, Izuku. You're so cool and cardboard tastes so good and I love you. Tanjiro laughs, shaking his head. You know I do, you jerk. You're in my head. Izuku throws his hands in the air dramatically. He confesses. And you're emoting to an empty hallway. Tanjiro grumbles. Can we get food now? Fine. I guess I'm hungry. By the time Izuku gets back to the dorms, his face hurts from smiling. As soon as Izuku slips through the front door of the dorms, he's accosted. Arms sweep him up off the floor and squeeze, and Kirishima proclaims, Dude, you're not dead. Not quite yet, Izuku wheezes in response. I do need to breathe, you know. Kirishima deposits him back onto the floor, giving him one last clap on the shoulder. His grip is gentle, however, and he asks, So you good now? Aizawa-sensei said you were fine, but what exactly happened? Yeah, Ajuru agrees, coming to add another person to the Izuku's Not Dead Club. You gave us a real scare there. Todoroki even thought you were injured or something. He narrows his eyes at Izuku. Which you weren't, right? Izuku swallows, trying not to wince too visibly at the question. He takes a second to consider his answer. Truth or lie, or a healthy mix of both. Cat's already out of the bag, right? Tanjiro reminds him. But that's just Aizawa-sensei, Izuku argues back. And these are your classmates. You weren't ever afraid of telling them, right? Damn it. Kirishima and Ajuru are still looking at him expectantly, and Izuku lets out a whoosh of breath. He opens his mouth to answer. Nausea sweeps through him as his vision tunnels. The earth rocks beneath him, an awful rushing sensation in his head, and it almost feels like getting hit with the quirk again. What is happening? The world blinks out. You know, Tanjiro had really and truly thought that just maybe that one time of switching bodies was a fluke. An honest mistake. That this little tie he and Izuku possess is strange, yes, but it couldn't possibly be that strange. Of course, he should really stop jinxing himself with this kind of thinking, but is it so bad to just try to be DMN optimistic? Apparently so, as the universe clearly does not listen to him at all ever. This is not news to Tanjiro, but still, he finds himself plainly annoyed when the rushing sensation takes over again. He's not sure what will come of it, bracing himself for practically anything at this point. Sadly, he forgot to include something that's already happened, so when he blinks to find his room at the inn replaced by two faces peering at him in a large room, he admits he panics just a tad, spitting out an involuntary, "The hell?" as Izuku painfully discovers Tanjiro's injury. One of the people standing with him, Izuku's classmates, raises a scarlet eyebrow. What? It's not that hard of an assumption. You get hurt like all the time. Tanjiro does not deign this with an answer, instead furiously thinking, it's happening again. Izuku, I'm in your body. As he takes in the odd pieces of clothing he's wearing. He turns in a quick circle, observing the purely huge building he appears to be in. He peers around the wall made entirely with glass panes looking out onto a courtyard to spy the room he recognizes as the one he met Shinso in, placed in the far left corner, another room connected in front of it with tables and chairs. Just to his left is an area with cushioned chairs that house a few more classmates and a strange silver box. Tanjiro stares, transfixed by the odd moving pictures showing a world of squares. Izuku thinks shakily, but, this is his first time doing this, Tanjiro realizes with a wince. He's trying to decode what to say to comfort him when a hand lands on his shoulder. Tanjiro jumps and whirls, hand reaching for a katana handle that's not there. The two classmates are staring at him. The red one is Kiri something, Tanjiro recalls vaguely, and, holy shit, that guy really has a tail. Izuku. Tanjiro scrambles to get his Brumi's attention again. Your classmates are looking at me, are you really weird? What do I do? Whoa man, the tail guy says, searching Tanjiro's but not Tanjiro's face. You sure you're good? Izuku rallies his thoughts into order right as Tanjiro opens his mouth to try and figure out the situation. Find Shinso. He wasn't the one who did it this time, Tanjiro thinks furiously. His hands move unconsciously without a sword to fist around, instead twining his fingers together. He feels rough scars that aren't his and releases them immediately. And how am I supposed to get away from these guys? Hey, Kiri something says and reaches over to poke Tanjiro's cheek. Are you spacing out on us or something? Or are you? Fine. Tanjiro blurts out on instinct, then winces as he hears Izuku's voice come out altogether too loud. He gets no response from the actual Izuku, who's too distracted by Tanjiro's world. Hey, he can do this. This isn't hard at all, Izuku was going to tell them anyway, right? He doesn't really have to pretend. His too loud and unconvincing statement draws the attention of some of the other students. A girl with short brown hair and matching doe-brown eyes bounces up to him right as he catches the glance of a boy coming down the stairs with impossibly split red and white hair. Oh, Deku, the girl says, and Tanjiro can't remember her name, something with a R in it, maybe? I heard about what happened. You didn't do anything stupid, did you? Tanjiro can feel the weight of many eyes on him, more people than the ones in front of him watching and waiting, a strange sense of tension filling the air. He realizes with a jolt that he can't smell any of them or their emotions. Suddenly, the world seems blank and cramped and there's so many people under one roof but he can't understand any of them, can't really trust any of them without the familiar knowledge of their scent. Something deep inside him, something almost physical, roils as if responding to his unease. He takes a few steps back without quite meaning to, and he feels himself fall back on the pure muscle memory of total concentration breathing. His lungs fill, hold, release, pause, fill, hold, release. It becomes a mantra chanted softly in the back of his head, and his muscles begin to loosen and strengthen. Tanjiro's head clears and calms, and he finds that he's gained split-hair guy and the unwavering attention of a spiky blonde who's sitting at one of the tables with his feet propped up. Maybe you should sit down, Kiri something suggests gently. Tanjiro grimaces. It's really okay, he tries, hands waving. We'll be fine soon, I think. I hope. We? Splithair asks, tilting his head a bit in a way that makes his scar fall into shadow and oh that's Todoroki, isn't it? Your sister isn't going to eat me, right? Izuku asks, sounding a bit nervous, and the question almost makes him laugh out loud, which is probably also because of his shot nerves, but you know. He does smile, though, unable to nod at Izuku and Nezuko's slightly awkward interaction. No way. My master put a spell on her so she'd see all humans as family, and you're currently in my body, so you're doubly safe. Maybe you should tell her that, Izuku mutters, but his nerves subside. Tanjiro takes a deep breath as he focuses on his own dire situation and he decides to as quickly, "Where's Shinso?" and disregard Todoroki's acknowledgement of his slip-up. In his room? Miss R exchanges a hesitant glance with the others. And, what's with the accent? Tanjiro just shakes his head. Can you show me? He casts his gaze around the room again, feeling dwarfed by its massive walls. How did any of them know where they were going in this huge place? I'm pretty sure you know where his room is, dude, Kiri something tells him, brow furrowed. And you should probably stay here and wait for? No, I need Shinso. Tanjiro cuts him off, his insistence giving way to some of his desperation. He flicks his gaze to and fro from one classmate to the next as he balls his hands into fists. You don't understand. Izuku needs Shinso. He's stuck. I'm stuck. What? Todoroki shoulders his way forward, and while he is a lot taller than Izuku. What are you talking about? His eyes narrow, and Tanjiro glances at what almost looks like frost spreading along his right arm. His tone drops into something dark and angry. How did you get on campus, Toga? At the mention of that name, a ripple seems to pass through the room. Spiky Blonde kicks out of his chair and starts to storm over other students. Does that guy have a bird head? Jumping up from their various spots as tension fills every corner of the space. Tail Guy quickly exits the group after a look from Miss R and skids out the door. Oh shit. Tanjiro takes a step back, really wishing he had his katana. Izuku, who's Toga and why are they all looking at me like they want to murder me? Oh god. Izuku says immediately, something like shocked panic racing along his nerves. I didn't even think about, imagine a demon that steals people's skin to look like them. That's what Toga is like, kinda. You should really find Shinso, like now. Tanjiro winces as angry crimson eyes override any other thought. Spiky Blonde grabs the collar of his shirt and Tanjiro can feel something burning through the cloth. I'm not Toga, he blurts as fast as he can. That's what Toga would if he say, Spiky Blonde sneers. You've been acting weird as hell lately. So I'm only going to say this once before I punch your villain but into the sun. Where is Midoriya? Tanjiro hurriedly casts around for a veritable excuse, or explanation even, but he's already dug himself into a pretty comfortable grave. Spiky Blonde, unfortunately, takes his silence as belligerence. Tanjiro's back meets the wall and he's reminded that this is the second occurrence in the last 24 hours. He coughs a bit, chest twinging with fresh pain. The only thing he can think to say is, he's fine. Spiky Blonde stills, narrowed eyes filled with enough vitriol to rival a demon. But where? Tanjiro catches a glimpse of purple on the stairs, and thank Kami Shinsu's voice calls, what's going on down here? Right? Tanjiro thinks curtly, and then slams his elbow into Spiky Blonde's stomach. Spiky Blonde lets out a small choking sound and his grip loosens enough for Tanjiro to slip away. He manages to meet Shinsu's gaze before Miss R skids between them, planting herself in front of Shinso with her fists raised. Toga! She gasps out in explanation. She wants you for some reason. Izuku, your friend's SCK. Tanjiro opens his mouth right as Kiri something hurls himself at his shoulder and sends Tanjiro stumbling to the side. He starts to turn, but suddenly Todoroki's there and he kicks out Tanjiro's knee. Tanjiro's tumbling to the floor before his brain can fully catch up to the action. Todoroki plants his knee on Tanjiro's chest. A gasp rips out of Tanjiro as his chest screams, black spots bursting before his eyes. In this instance, you're not wrong, Izuku mutters. Todoroki raises his left hand and flames dance around his fingers. His mismatched eyes almost glow with an intensity matching the fire. But hey, at least your sister likes me? Izuku tacks on, a beat too late. Tanjiro decides not to deign that with an answer. Wait. A blur of lilac and eye bags shoves Todoroki off of him, Shinso moving to stand in front of Tanjiro. Tanjiro blinks and pushes himself to a sitting position as Shinso raises his hands, palms out, and says imploringly, "It's not what you think." "What are you doing?" Todoroki seethes, his hands still somehow on fire, though it doesn't seem to be hurting him. He glares at Shinso. "That's Toga." His words seem to be working again, finally, and Tanjiro blurts out, "I'm not, I swear," as he gets to his feet. "He's not," Shinso agrees. He glances over at Tanjiro as the demon slayer moves to hesitantly stand next to him. Shinso extends a hand, one eyebrow quirking upwards as he meets the other boy's gaze. "Tanjiro, right?" Relief swarms up Tanjiro's throat, and he shakes Shinso's hand gratefully. "Yeah. Sorry about this whole mess. It definitely was not on purpose, I swear." Shinso lifts a shoulder, a playful smirk crossing his lips. "Meh. Things were getting boring anyway." Tanjiro cracks a grin at that, feeling a ping of companionship that dissipates as soon as something clears his throat. "Wait, what?" "Shinso, what's going on? Why are you defending her?" Spiky blonde snarls. And yep, those are definitely small explosions coming out of his hands. "Honestly, what is with this time?" "Those are quirks," Izuku says in a brief explanation, amused at Tanjiro's reaction. "Well, most everyone has one. They're born with it. For example, Kakens is using his sweat to shoot explosions out of his hands, and Shinso can take control of anyone who talks to him. A power that's unique to you." Tanjiro recalls what Izuku had said what feels like an eternity ago. He lets his gaze roam over the group of kids, feeling a sense of awe as he takes in each of their faces. Every single one of these people just has access to power. All of them have abilities that are innate, not something they have to train for years to get a hold of. Tanjiro's not jealous, okay, maybe a little jealous, but the idea of the pure strength that humans now possess is staggering. No wonder demons are unheard of here, he marvels. They wouldn't survive a year with humanity being this strong. The thought is accompanied by a bittersweetness that coats the back of his tongue. He wonders what his place in history will be in the end. Remembered? Forgotten? Loathed or loved? Or just another human fighting for freedom? Except he already knows, with Izuku quietly in his head. Tanjiro blinks out of his thoughts as Shinso says, "Well, I suppose that answer is up to you, Tanjiro." Tanjiro can't help but roll his eyes a little. Shinso really is kind of an a-hole. "You seemed perfectly fine telling Izuku-sensei. Also, I'm sure he's tired of being stuck with my sister, so..." "How dare you," Izuku huffs. "I'm going to find a way to steal your sister, actually. Just a heads up." "Good luck with that," Tanjiro tells him with a smile. He's sure that Nezuko already loves Izuku as much as he does, though he hopes for him and Izuku's sake that they never come in contact again. And as much as Izuku loves his classmates, Tanjiro can't exactly say the same at this point. No often, actually, some offense, Izuku's classmates. "So, you're not Midoriya, but you're not Toga either," Misor says slowly, staring at him openly. She taps her knuckles together in what Tanjiro translates as a nervous habit. No offense, Tanjiro?" Tanjiro nods, and she continues with renewed confidence. "No offense, but can we have Midoriya back now?" Tanjiro turns expectantly to Shinso. The boy sighs, opening his mouth, and Tanjiro jumps as the door slams open. Something white shoots towards him out of his peripherals and he starts to move, only to knock into Shinso. The white whips around him, and he finds that his arms are now being restrained to his sides by white cloth. "Oh no," Izuku groans, and Tanjiro can feel him plopping his face into his hands. Will the embarrassment ever cease? The origin of the cloth, Tanjiro finds, is a man standing by the doorway. He has coils of the stuff looped around his shoulders. His black hair is also floating eerily above his head, and his eyes glow red as they lock onto Tanjiro. A shiver creeps up the back of his neck. This can only be the famed Aizawa-sensei, then. "Yup, that's him," Izuku mumbles. In case you're wondering, his quirk lets him erase other people's quirks, though I have no idea why his hair floats when he uses it. That seems like a very helpful power, Tanjiro muses. What he wouldn't give to have the ability to neutralize a demon art, especially one like Daki's or Enmu's. Glowing eyes land squarely on him, and he can't help but grimace a bit as he meets Aizawa's red-hot gaze. Aizawa's brow furrows in something like confusion, and his grip on the cloth thing slackens. "That isn't toga," he says simply, his voice deep and gruff, and his red eyes settle into a regular, non-glowing black. Nope," Tanjiro answers helpfully. "Nice to meet you?" He then turns desperately pleading eyes on Shinso, who snorts but does nothing else. Tanjiro wrangles down the urge to punch him. He's quickly released from the cloth, Aizawa eyeing him the whole time as if Tanjiro's skin is going to burst to reveal that he is actually this toga person. He soon huffs and crosses his arms over his chest, however, seemingly accepting the not Izuku in front of him. "Explain." Tanjiro runs a hand through his hair, only slightly weirded out this time that it's curly. "Izuku already told you about the quirk, so, hi? Right?" Aizawa casts his eyes to the ceiling as if imploring for divine intervention. Of course he neglected to mention this aspect. "Tell him we are having a very long, very insightful talk after we figure this out." "God help me," Izuku mutters. "On second thought, it's pretty comfy here. I can just stay. Have fun with the demons," Tanjiro tells him cheerfully, before remembering that Aizawa is waiting for an answer. Yeah, he knows. "And you were the one who was injured?" Aizawa prompta, his gaze never wandering from Tanjiro for a second. "Yes." It comes out as a question, and Tanjiro winces before hurrying on. "I have a high pain tolerance though, so it's okay. The thing I was fighting just took me by surprise, and really, Izuku's the one currently really dealing with it, so we're both fine." He tapers off, feeling his cheeks heat, then curses Izuku for his rambling influence. "Oh my god," Miss R mutters from behind him. "There's two of them. Todoroki, there's two of them." Tanjiro resists the heavy urge to cover his face with his hands. Instead, he elbows Shinso in the ribs. Shinso yelps and smacks at Tanjiro's arm, scowling at him. Okay. I was just waiting for Sensei to get here and defuse the situation." "Sure." Tanjiro deadpans at the same time Izuku thinks it. "Please send me back to my time now, thank you." Shinso glances at Aizawa, who nods. "Alright, who's?" Tanjiro doesn't hear the rest of the words. His vision flips, once, twice, static overtaking his mind as his stomach lurches, and he thinks finally. It doesn't occur to him that he never actually responded to Shinso. Then the scent of salt greets Izuku's nose, and he finds that he's lying on something soft. He peels open his eyes to find himself in a small room, with walls rising around him. It takes a second for it to register. Then Izuku feels his mouth drop open and he flings himself off the futon he's apparently been lying on, panic crawling along his skin. Only he ends up staggering and falling on his butt as pain ricochets around his chest. "The hell?" he and Tanjiro blurt out at the same time. "It's happening again!" Tanjiro shouts, his mind moving a mile a minute. "Izuku, I'm in your body." "I'm Izuku," inhales shakily, gaze floating to an open window perched on the wall to his right, letting sunlight and salty sea air spill into the room. He brings a hand to press against his chest. His bandaged chest. He stares down at the white material and non-scarred hand, gaping like a fish. "No. Izuku." Tanjiro calls again. "Your classmates are looking at me. Are you really weird? What do I do?" Izuku exhales, breath shuddering. He's in Tanjiro's body, which means Tanjiro is in his. Which means Izuku's in the past, and Tanjiro's in the future. And Izuku's classmates were right there. This Quirk, man. Izuku squeezes his eyes shut, forcing himself to think. Tanjiro is right, this has happened before. Just not entirely like, this. But maybe. Find Shinso, he decides. He wasn't the one who did it this time, Tanjiro reminds him. Izuku can feel him fidgeting, twisting his fingers together only to recoil slightly at the feeling of unknown scars. And how am I supposed to get away from these guys? Izuku digs his hands, not his hands, into his hair, not hide focus. No messy curls greet him, but he tries to shake off the shiver that crawls up his spine. This is wrong. This is also. His eyes flick open as he becomes suddenly aware of a strange scent permeating the room. Familiar, somehow, but also not, and some unconscious part of him relaxes. He sweeps his gaze around the room, not bothering to get up, and sees something he hadn't previously noticed. A reddish wood box sits in the corner of the room, black straps pooled behind it on the floor. Hadn't he felt the phantom weight of the box on his back before? There's something important about it, or in it, maybe. Tanjiro hasn't specified, but Izuku knows. Izuku jumps a bit as the hinged front panel slowly opens, just enough to show a head of black hair and petal-pink eyes. Izuku's seen those eyes before. He tilts his head slightly as Tanjiro's younger sister, Nezuko, shuffles out of the box. Once grown to her normal height, that's insane, really demons are weird, she mirrors his head tilt, regarding him curiously. Izuku murmurs hesitantly. Hi. Nezuko's eyes sharpen, literally, her pupils contracting into slits. She takes a few steps forward, carefully avoiding the pools of sunlight on the floor from the open window. She stops a foot or two away from him, not quite glaring, but her expression is intense. Under it, though, Izuku thinks he might see hints of confusion. He bites down on his lower lip nervously as they stare at each other. She doesn't make any more moves towards him, but her eyes never leave his face. He meets her gaze and says softly, "You know I'm not your brother, don't you?" Nezuko shows no sign of acknowledgement towards his words. She takes a step forward, however, and Izuku pushes away the urge to lean away from her slitted eyes. "Your sister isn't going to eat me, is she?" Izuku asks, only half joking. "No way," Tanjiro assures him quickly. "My master put a spell on her so she'd see all humans as family, and you're currently in my body so you're doubly safe." "Yeah, maybe you should tell her that," Izuku mutters. He looks back up at the demon girl, raising his hands in a way that he hopes comes off as non-threatening. "Your name is Nezuko, right?" I'm Izuku." "Tanjiro? Oh, we're in a bit of a predicament right now," he chuckles weakly. And Nezuko blinks at him. She's lost the glowering look, but her eyes are still cat-like. "I'd appreciate it if, you didn't get angry at me or anything. We're working on it, I promise." Nezuko blinks at him. She drops to her knees in front of him, and Izuku tenses as she reaches out a hand, but all she does is poke him on the cheek. Her pupils return to rounded normalcy and she leans forward, an unseen smile crinkling the edges of her eyes. She places her hand in his hair, ruffling it until burgundy strands fall into his eyes. Izuku swats at her hand gently, smiling slightly. Nezuko pulls her hand away only to grab his, a small, airy sound that might have been a laugh escaping from behind her muzzle. Of course, that's when Tanjiro swears. "Oh shit. Izuku, who's Toga and why are they all looking at me like they want to murder me?" Panic bursts through Izuku, and he straightens so fast it makes his chest hurt. "Oh god. I didn't even think about..." He scrambles for an explanation. Imagine a demon that steals people's skin to look like them. That's what Toga is like, kinda. You should really find Shinso like now. Except he doesn't. Tanjiro gets his back slammed into the wall for the second time by Bakugo and Izuku really wishes that whatever had swapped them in the first place would do it again. Tanjiro swiftly makes his escape, though, and it is weird to feel your elbow but not your elbow jabbing into another person. And also weird to have someone knock their shoulder into your body except you're not in it. "Izuku, your friend's SCK." Tanjiro grumbles. Then pain lances through his chest as Todoroki pins Tanjiro, and Izuku grasps at the bandages, jaw clenched. In this instance, "You're not wrong," he gets out. He tries to think of something to say to lighten the mood. "But hey, at least your sister likes me." Tanjiro doesn't answer, which is fair. Thankfully, Shinso comes to rescue him, and they try to quell the others. Izuku can't help but smile at Tanjiro's plain awe as he gives a quick explanation of quirks. It's something that's so normal in Izuku's society, and it's strange and somehow endearing seeing it from an outside perspective. Abruptly, he remembers Nezuko, and jerks his wandering gaze back to her. She's still steadily watching him, pink eyes curious but gentle. Izuku can't help but wonder how much of him and Tanjiro's situation she really understands. Then he huffs in response to Tanjiro's words, "How dare you? I'm going to find a way to steal your sister, actually. Just a heads up." "Good luck with that," Tanjiro answers dryly, though he's smiling. Izuku definitely is not, however, when Aizawa-sensei inevitably makes his appearance. He takes his hand out of Nezuko's to have the ability to dramatically shove his face into his palms, but it's not worth the look of betrayal she gives him. He guiltily offers it back to her. Nezuko snatches it back and pairs the action with shuffling over to his side and leaning on him. He winces as Aizawa-sensei spells out his doom for him in sufficient words and no amount of fanfare. It's all the more terrifying. "God help me," Izuku mutters, trying not to sound as miserable as he feels. Tanjiro will know either way, sadly. On second thought, it's pretty comfy here. I can just stay. But the heady, whirling feeling takes over once more, and Izuku barely has time to wave goodbye to Nezuko before the serene scene around him disappears. Izuku lands in himself with a spinning head and a purple-haired insomniac eyeing him carefully. They're standing in the common area, and he is altogether too aware of the feeling of too many eyes on him. He twitches, flexes his fingers, hands flying up to slap at, thankfully, his own face. Finally, "You back with us?" Shinso asks. "I'm assuming what's-his-name wouldn't smack himself, so—" "Oh, shut up. You literally know his name." Izuku mutters. He shakes his head, trying to dislodge the remnants of the fuzzy feeling. He quickly lets his gaze skim over his classmates, pointedly ignoring Aizawa-sensei's looming presence, and decides to grab the bull by its horns. "Man, that was weird." "Not as weird as it was for us, dude," Kirishima counters immediately, and Izuku winces. He supposes it was one way to reveal his misfortune, but really? It just had to be this one? At some point, he feels like he should take a very inconspicuous stroll by himself just to measure how much the universe actually hates him. "Let's not." Tanjiro butts in. For science, Izuku reasons studiously. Meeting Shinso's gaze, he remembers that people are actually trying to talk to him and cheat, and quickly tunes back in. Kirishima has his hands thrown up in the air, the epitome of exasperation as he speaks. "When were you going to tell us? Keeping that kind of stuff secret could end up hurting you, you know." Izuku grimaces, letting out a sigh. "Hey, I was going to—" literally right before the whole thing happened. Was not my fault." He surveys the room around him, doing a mental headcount of the classmates that have gathered. "So, hi most everyone. Hopefully Tanjiro didn't freak you out too much." He lets out an awkward chuckle at the same time he shoots Shinso a look. Shinso sticks his tongue out a little back. "Yeah, sorry," Tanjiro mutters. "Don't think I really had a chance there, but I tried my best." "That's fair. I'm sorry to have put you in that position in the first place. Definitely not your fault." Tanjiro says immediately. "You said it yourself." "And?" Tanjiro lets out a small huff, shaking his head. Izuku eyes the stairs, wondering how much one for all he'd have to use to outrun Izawa-sensei's capture weapon. He's very much tempted to disappear under his covers until Kingdom Come, or until dinner's done. Unfortunately, only a few of his classmates have headed back to whatever they were doing before, deeming this Midoriya moment over. And Todoroki is staring at him in the stupid intense way he does sometimes, like he can disassemble Izuku's brain through his eyes. Todoroki blows out a breath, making his dual-colored bangs twitch. "I have a question," he says, and Izuku knows fully well that he's about to be interrogated to the third degree. "What? And I mean this in all sincerity, the F-. "That is a great question," Izuku grumbles. "Unfortunately, the universe has declined to enlighten me." Ajuru pats him on the shoulder consolingly. "That blows, dude." But Todoroki brings up a valid point. "It's cool that you told Shinso and all, but maybe next time bring it up a tad sooner than the guy in your head stealing your body." "I agree," Aizawa-sensei says, crossing his arms over his chest. "You and I need to talk, problem child. About your friend, and whatever else you may be hiding from me." "It wasn't his fault," Izuku says instantly, defensiveness curling in his throat. "And the training thing wasn't his fault either, before you ask. The thing he was trying to kill was being stubborn. You know how it is." "Wow, let's give them an even better impression of me, why not?" Tanjiro deadpants. No, Shinso says, a long-suffering look passing over his features. No, we really actually do not. Aizawa-sensei pinches the bridge of his nose, sighing heavily. You know what, I'm not gonna ask. Now, problem child, your room. Let's go. Izuku casts his gaze around, trying to find something to distract his sensei, but everything around him is bleak and unhelpful. Aizawa-sensei starts to walk towards the stairs, fully intending for Izuku to follow. He considers just not, but knows that'll land him in even more trouble. So, he glares at Shinso, fully ignoring Tanjiro's small snort and declares dramatically, "You've spelled out my doom, you heathens." Blasphemy, Shinso tells him, smirking like the a-hole he is. We only called forth the behemoth of Class 1A. The rest is on you. How dare you, Izuku mutters, moving as slowly as possible to follow Aizawa-sensei. I shall curse you for your wretched sins. Shinso starts to laugh, and the others join in as Izuku tromps up the stairs. Miserably, he thinks, my crops are ruined. My skin is no longer clear. I shall die amidst the laughter. Oh, stop being so dramatic, Tanjiro says, though he himself is still grinning. He isn't actually going to kill you. Besides, he does need to know the details if we're ever going to get out of this situation. Excuse you, I live off drama and spite, Izuku scoffs. And moderate anger, though only occasionally. Anger isn't good for the soul, you know. How dare you? I can be angry if I want. As if you don't have an angry bone in your body, sir. Could say the same to you, Mr. Bonebreaker. Izuku lets out an unmanly squeak of indignation. You don't know anything about my bones. I think I can go out on a limb here, Tanjiro answers easily, and Izuku can feel his eyebrow raise. Alright, that's it. I'm gonna say it. Izuku threatens, though he's trying not to smile. I don't care that you broke your elbow. I've never broken my elbow, Tanjiro says dismissively. Izuku chokes back his laughter at his friend's complete seriousness. And remind me again who it is here that breaks their bones? Oh. Aizawa-sensei is waiting by his door, hands shoved in his pockets. He eyes Izuku as the greenette opens the door and gives a sarcastic gesture of welcome. Izuku plops down on his bed and watches as Aizawa-sensei leans against the edge of his desk, dark eyes flicking over the myriad of hero posters plaguing the walls. Izuku regrets the lack of an eraser-head one, but underground heroes are supposed to be unknown and thus don't have much merch. He does have a homemade keychain with his sensei's capture weapon on it, though. Aizawa-sensei sighs and says finally, explain. Oh well, funny story, Izuku starts, wincing at his stutter. He wishes he could pull his blanket over his head and live out the rest of his life as a fabric-haunting ghost. Once, Shinso accidentally used his quirk on me and then Tanjiro was just kinda there, all of a sudden? Weird, I know, because I don't know what the hell that was about. But anyway, while I was under Shinso's quirk, he maybe slightly just a little bit stole my body? And freaked out Shinso. Izuku seeks in a deep breath, having no intention to set down the shovel that's digging his own grave just yet, but unfortunately, Aizawa-sensei holds up at hand to force him to. Okay, he says, drawing out the word while he pinches the bridge of his nose. And you didn't mention this at that time or when you were talking to me? To be fair, Izuku replies innocently. You didn't ask. Aizawa-sensei sends him a look that somehow transcended unimpressed. How on the surface of this DM Earth would I, never mind. And this happened again tonight? Was Shinso's quirk acting up? Izuku twists the corner of his comforter around his fingers. Tonight was a bit weird. It kinda just happened on its own. What? Aizawa-sensei deepens. The F-dash. Izuku finishes cheerfully, sending a mental high-five to Tanjiro at his genius. The other boy does not reciprocate. You're not the first person to have asked that today, surprisingly. Aizawa-sensei reaches out to smack him upside the head, which, at this point, he probably deserves. Language. So, the boy that the quirk put in your head, Tanjiro, was his name, took control of your body tonight. For the second time. Except you say he's not dangerous. Izuku frowns, recalling his spiel and realizing his mistake. He's not. He's not doing it on purpose. The first time he just panicked a little, 'cause of Shinso's quirk. The second, tonight, We were both yeeted excessively through the space-time continuum into each other's bodies, without Shinso. Aizawa-sensei blinks slowly as he wrestles some sort of meaning out of that statement. Right? And the space-time continuum is involved because Tanjiro's in the past, Izuku informs him nonchalantly, leaning his back against the wall. Teisho PRD, actually. Are you trying to confuse him? Tanjiro asks. It feels like you are. If you can't blow them away with your brilliance, baffle them with your bullshit. Izuku intones seriously. And do I have enough bullshit to baffle him into the next century? That doesn't sound that beneficial. It is to my mental health, Izuku tells him, grinning. Aizawa-sensei is staring at him, arms now crossed over his chest. His eyebrows are low over his narrowed eyes and come off as unequivocally annoyed. Right? He says again, sighing heavily. First the bones, now the quirks. Will you please just calm the hell down? You have 2 years to go for this kind of sheet. Izuku presses a hand to his heart in an exaggerated motion of mock offense. You act like I seek out trouble. Maybe not actively, Aizawa-sensei grumbles. But you positively attract endlessly complicated situations, problem child. Yeah, I know, Izuku sighs. You got any theories on the quirk? Izuku glances toward his desk, sighing a bit. That's weird. Really weird. It changed, like, added onto the effects it already has. First telepathy, then empathy, then the touch thing. I've never heard of a quirk that has the capacity to do that. He tilts his head a bit, letting his mind wander over the matter. Maybe it was a dual quirk, something similar to Todoroki's? But so far it's had 3 effects, not just 2. And it's clearly a mental quirk, which in itself is rare, so the fact that this one is so versatile is honestly kinda scary. Plus, considering that the guy who has it clearly had a few screws loose, yeah, that could end up as pretty dangerous. And the quirk, well, there's not that much to go on. The effects must be connected somehow, right? There's gotta be a reason that those 3 things happened, in that succession. Or maybe he's wrong and it's all entirely random. Izuku feels like there really is something there, the answer lying dormant on the tip of his tongue. Right? I'll leave that to you and your head, Aizawa-sensei says, and there's the tiniest of smiles pulling at the corner of his lips. Izuku's not sure how much of that escaped out of his mouth, but he supposes it doesn't really matter. Aizawa-sensei scans Izuku over one last time. I'll talk to Tsukachi about the progress on the case. You will let me know if there's any more developments, got it? Izuku nods a bit absently, before snapping his wandering gaze up to his sensei. Got it? And then the only sound is Izuku's all-might alarm clock ticking away on his desk. Izuku lets out a whoosh of breath and throws his arms up in the air, finally flopping back on his bed. Okay, that definitely could have gone worse. Right? Depends on your definition of worse, I suppose, Tanjiro answers dryly. Also, I know I brought it up earlier, but seriously, what is with you and bones? Why do people keep talking about that? Izuku slides one fist over the other to pop his knuckles as he explains, my bones and I have a tenuous relationship. My quirk, my power, is enhanced strength, and for a while I really couldn't control it, so whenever I used it I would break whatever limb I was enhancing. It's to the point where now, if I break my arms again, I'll probably have permanent nerve damage. Well, more than I already have, anyway. Tanjiro trails off, sounding a bit strangled. I can control it now, Izuku thinks with a huff. Don't be so capital insult truly. I try. Izuku exhales slowly, letting himself sink into his mattress. Without the distraction of talking to Tanjiro, his brain goes right back to its previous topic. Biting the inside of one cheek, he brings back the feeling of being so close to the answer of the quirk. He goes over what he knows about telepathy, and then empathy, leaving out the touch empathy because he doesn't even know where to begin there. What do they have in common? He asks himself. They're similar, both mental effects, both concerning more than one person. Izuku sits on that thought for a few moments. More than one person means, in this instance, equal effects on both parties. By using either telepathy or empathy, you're letting each of the people access something from the other person. If he goes off of the metaphor he told Shinso about the touch empathy, It's like grabbing two people's brains or emotions and smushing them together. The quirk connects them in a way that's otherwise impossible. Izuku sits up so fast his room spins. Telepathy connects people's minds. Empathy connects their emotions. And the touch empathy connects physical feelings, like pain or skin-to-skin contact. First one, then another, and another. If he goes by that logic, it's not exactly a jump to consider the idea of another. What would go beyond wiring together two people's nerves? Oh, Kami, Tanjiro whispers, having no problem following Izuku's now familiar thought process. Swapping consciousnesses. Izuku says aloud, and his voice is way too loud against his silent walls. Tanjiro, we're being connected.